Sup you beautiful people. Hope you've had a fantastic day. Welcome back to another new episode of What If Naruto Was the New Raikage. If you guys enjoy this what if, comment down below and let me know. And go ahead and check out other what ifs in the channel after watching this video. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description down below. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like, and also share this video with your friends. So now let's start this video. Last time on Raikage. After a few minutes of discussing with one another, it was decided that they would go for the Raikage plan. Very well, then by tomorrow, we should have the information on the locations of all the prisoners, and who is, in what cell, as well as the locations of all the volley guns there if they are there. After which we will then have 2 days to prepare the forces needed for the operations. It then should take another 2 days by airship to get to Mizuno-kuni. On the 3rd they will attack the prison, in which hopefully Satan people will be in place and be ready when our forces attack, and our teams will rescue the princess, and the following day the teams will meet our escort fleet at the meeting point. Stated the Raikage. Once everyone nodded their heads in agreement, they all left to discuss with themselves what will happen in the next few days. The winds of change are finally beginning to blow soon. A storm will arrive that will destroy the old corrupt world that refuses to change for the better, and a new world will be born for ruins, thought the Raikage as he left the war council room to go home. 3 days later, on Kumo airship docks. A few hundred feet above the village of New Kumagakure, on the sides of the mountains surrounding the village, there were several large platforms built on the mountain sides for Kumo's airships to land on and allow people to board or leave the airships. Kumo's airships were large hulking war machines which were air-powered, and employed the use of multiple propeller sets on top of their hulls. The airships were extremely long in length, and had an ornamental dragon's head to instill fear into enemy forces. The airships were made entirely of metal and were crewed by at least 20 crewmen and 20 ninjas and 10 Skyhawk ninjas. They could carry dozens of bombs that they could drop from the hatches on their underbellies in order to destroy ground targets, as well as drop pods for ninjas' airdrop attacks. Also, small catapult launchers for launching Skyhawk ninjas were built on these ships, and catwalks hung from the ship's underside, so that ninjas could fire jutsu at oncoming enemy air forces, should another nation build any of their own, or down at enemies below. The ninjas on the catwalks would also be secured with harnesses to keep them from falling off. The ships also had 3 large man-sized ballistas built onto either side of the airship, and volley guns built at the forward and underbelly of the airships, along with a newly developed weapon called a lightning cannon under the ornamental dragon head, so to fire down at enemies, or even at other flying aircrafts. Currently on the platform, the Raikage was talking to the commander of the unit he was sending on the mission to rescue the princess. "I wish you luck, Commander. I know that you and your teams will accomplish your mission," said the Raikage. "Thank you, Raikage-sama, we shall not fail you. We will meet you at the meeting point as planned," said the commander, who was wearing a falcon-shaped onbu mask that had black lines on it. 1 day later, in Konoha Council Room. Currently in Konoha Council Room, the members of Konoha Council were sitting at their seats at the council table. They had all been summoned by the Hokage for an emergency meeting for some unknown reason. Soon after they arrived, Tsunade and Jiraiya entered the room. "Hokage-san, why have you called us all here for this emergency meeting?" asked Koharu in an almost demanding tone of voice, and without the traditional sama when speaking to Hokage. Tsunade just frowned at Koharu tone. The old hag and that old war hawk Danzo were getting too full of themselves, thinking that they could boss her around like a fresh genin. She often wished that she and Jiraiya had killed the 2 of them when they learned their plan about Naruto and the Akatsuki, but she knew that if she killed them, then it would bring nothing but trouble, since the 2 of them had the civilian council members in their back pocket. Not to mention several other important people in Konoha that would make life in Konoha very hard if she were to kill them or remove them from their positions. Not to mention she had no question that if Danzo was killed, his root division would rebel against Konoha, causing complete chaos in the village, especially since she did not know all of the locations of Danzo bases. The bastard was as slippery as her old snake of a teammate was, which would result into civil war, and that was the last thing they needed right now. So she decided to ignore what Koharu had said. "Good afternoon, thank you all for coming so quickly. I sure that you are all wondering why I called this meeting," said Tsunade, which caused Koharu to frown, since she had just asked her that, and she just ignored her. 3 hours ago we received a message from the Yumi Daimyo informing us that 9 days ago his daughter Princess Sachi, who was being guarded by Kurenai-san and her team, was captured by warships from Kirigakure and Mizuno-kuni," said Swand. This caused the civilian council members to started shouting about what happened. As they were shouting, several of the clan heads had worried looks on their faces, since people they cared about were on that team. Lee Kunikumo thought worriedly about her husband. Choji thought Choza fearing for his son. Kurenai Abasan thought Konohamaru as he began to worry about his aunts. After a quick burst of killing intent and a frosty glare that would have frozen hell itself from Hinata, the civilian member wisely shrank down and shut up. This caused Tsunade to smile a little in gratitude at her former student for shutting the fools up. Okage-sama, how exactly was the princess captured? As I do not think that Kurenai-sensei would hand over her to Mizuno Kuni, and Kiri spoke Hinata as she too was worried about her former sensei, that had been like a second mother to her when she was younger. At this question Jiraiya intervened and answered Hinata's question. It seems that somehow the Mizu Daimyo and the Go Daime Mizukage found that Princess Sachi was leaving to go to Tsuki no Kuni to go to her wedding, and had only a light guard protecting her. They then sent 3 Mizu no Kuni warships and 2 Kiri warships to capture the princess. Also, according to the royals' guards who were assigned to protect the princess, the 2 Kiri warships had volley guns, and they had even created handheld versions of them and given them to their ninjas. Which was why when they saw what they had, the princess surrendered herself to them, so that they would spare the others' lives, spoke Jiraiya, where after he had finished speaking, pandemonium erupted in the council room, but was quickly silenced with a burst of killing intent coming from Tsunade this time. So it seems that the rumors that you reported to us about Kiri getting their hands on the plans on Haruyuki no Kuni, Spring Snow Country, volley guns were true, and not only have they built them onto their fleets, but have also created handheld versions of them. This is greatly troubling, said Danzo said with a frown. But what happened to my husband and the other members of his team? Asked a worried Yakumo. I'm afraid that Kiri decided to take them as prisoners to interrogate them for information on us, answered Tsunade sadly, since like some of the other members of the council, she was worried about the members of the team including Sakura, for although she was still a bit angry for her past sins against Naruto, that didn't mean she wanted her to be tortured, raped and killed, which was what would most likely would happen to her. This caused Yakumo to gasp in fear, knowing what that meant, and put her hand to cover her mouth, as thoughts of Lee being tortured crept into her mind, where a black pit of dread started to form in her stomach as she thought of this. Where are the princess, Kurenai-san, and her team being held? Asked Himeru. They're being held in the hold, answered Jiraiya. This caused a good bit of worried muttering, since everyone knew the infamous prison of Kirigakure, which none had ever escaped from, and where they held most of the political prisoners of both the Mizu Daimyo and the Mizukage, not to mention the large number of rebel ninjas that were held there as well. So what do we do now? Asked Hamura. What do you think? We have to rescue them, shouted Konohamaru. Konohamaru had grown up quite a bit in the past 10 years. He was now a tall young man about 5'8", and wore the standard attire for a jonin, with a green flat jacket and black shinobi pants and shirt underneath the flat jacket. His hair was still spiky but was now longer, where he had his tied up in a short ponytail at the back of his head, and had his headband around his head. He also carried a small metal tube on his right side hip, where once he flicked a small switch on the tube, it would extend into a long metal battle pole to use when fighting. The extendable battle pole was a new device that Nakumo Tenten father, had created based on another new device, the extendable spear that an old blacksmith friend of his from outside the village had shown him, which according from him, had been created in Kumagakure. Konohamaru-san, please settle down, since things like this are not that simple. We cannot waste vital resources and risking more lives on a single team, since every shinobi knows that there is always a risk of something like this happening. Besides, it would take a small army of shinobis to attack the prison, and we can't afford to send that many to attack the hold, since if we did, Iwa, Kusa, Odo or the Hanyu clan would most likely take advantage of our depleted numbers and attack us. Kurenai-san and her team are expendable losses, stated Kaharu simply without so much as a shred of sympathy. To hell with it, my grandfather always told me Konoha shinobis never abandoned their comrades. Not to mention right now my little cousin is staying at my home waiting for his mother to return home, and I'd be damned if I going home to tell him that his mother has been captured and no one is willing to try and rescue her. He has already lost his father before he was even born, so there is no way in hell I going to let him grow up without a mother too, shouted Konohamaru. There are many orphans in this world, Sarutobi-san, and many shinobis with children who know well that whenever they go on missions that they may leave their children as orphans. Besides, what is one more orphan in this village to the many that there are now, stated Danzo coldly. Konohamaru was about to blow his gasket and attack the Ane bastard for his comment, but Yakumo spoke up before he could do anything. You may be willing to leave them all to be tortured and killed in that prison, Danzo, speaking his name with venom, but I'm not, and there is no way I'm going to let my daughter grow up without her father either, said Yakumo. I agree with Konohamaru-san and Yakumo-san, they're not a chance in hell I'm going to let my son rot in that place, spoke Shimza as he slammed his fist down on the council table, making large cracks on the table. Both Shikaku and Inoichi nodded in agreement. As my mother so often tells me, a pack never abandons it, members said Hana, who had recently took over the position as clan head from her mother, who was now helping teaching younger Inuzuka children to work with their canine partners. I also agree with Saratobi-san in rescuing Karini-san and her team since, although sometimes some of the hive must sacrifice themselves for the good of the hive itself, it is not in this case since Kurenai-san, Lee-san, Choji-san and Sakuura-san are all powerful and valued members of Konoha. Also they know a great deal of our secrets, and if they reveal them to Kiri, they will use them to greatly hurt us, so logic dictates that we must save them to prevent that from happening, answered Shibi. I agree as well, and if Konoha does not agree to send a team to rescue Kurenai-sensei, then I and my clan will, and I will personally lead that team myself, announced Hinata, as she stood up and spoke with confidence and determination. Hinata had also grown up quite a bit as well, where instead of short hair her hair was now long that reached down to her lower back. She also wore typical shinobi black pants and fishnet shirt and a midriff tank, which showed of her impressive figure and bust, although she cared little of that. Hinata also wore black fingerless gloves, and wore a long white sleeveless coat, with the Hyuga clan symbol on it, and yellow flames on the edges. Hinata's statement of course got many surprised looks from everyone, since Hinata had just stated that if they did not go rescue Kurenai and her team, that she and the Hyuga clan would go on their own and rescue the others themselves. Hence if they did do that it would hurt Konoha reputation greatly, since if one of their most prominent clans, the Hyuga clan, went against Konoha ruling and took upon themselves to try and rescue one of their captured teams, it would make Konoha look incompetent. Since people would believe that Konoha had no control over their shinobis and their clans, hence they would lose face and more business from current clients, and that was the last thing they needed, since they were already in a hard spot, as it is in financial and economical standing. That will not be needed, Hinata. We will send an infiltration team to rescue Karini and the others, as well as Princess Sachi, said Swand. Hokage-sama, you can't be serious. We can't afford to lose any more of our best shinobis. All we be doing is weakening ourselves, shouted Ashikaga-shin. I am very much serious, and this is a ninja matter, Ashikaga, hence you have no say beside. You don't understand the situation that we are in right now, rounded Swand. Situation? What do you mean, Hokage-sama? Asked a confused Shin. Tsunade just sighed and said, when I received the message from the Yumi daimyo, he spoke how furious he was with that, how the team that we sent to protect his daughter failed to protect her. After we declared that we would make sure that no harm would come to her, and that we sent some of our very best ninjas to protect her. But that was not our fault. There was no way we could have known that Kiri would be waiting to ambush us, not to mention that they would have those weapons with them, said Asai Haida. That still doesn't change the fact that our ninjas failed to do what they were hired to do, and even after all our assurances, said Tsunade, where she then continued. Hence we have no choice but try and rescue both Kurenai's team and the princess, or we throw away any chance we have of good relationships with Yumi no Kuni and Suki no Kuni, and also risk further isolating ourselves further. Then what are we waiting for, Ba-chan? Let me and my team go and we rescue them all, roared Konohamaru. That is enough, Konohamaru. Rushing off half-cocked like that will only end up in disaster, ordered Tsunade, which got the young man to calm down and sit back down onto his seat, after which Tsunade spoke again. Before we make any kind of rescue attempt, we need information on the prison, and where Princess Sachi, Kurenai and the others are being held, after which we will need to make a plan of attack to infiltrate the prison and get them out as quickly as possible. Jiraiya, I need you to head to Mizu no Kuni and get as much information on the hold as you can, and find where Kurenai and the others are all being held in it as soon as possible. Also if you can see if you can get us pictures of the prison, or better yet plans of it if possible, ordered Swand. Right, I might do what I can, replied Jiraiya, and quickly shunshin it away. Once Jiraiya has gotten all the information on the prison that he can, I want you, Shikaku, and your son Shikamaru, to create a plan to allow us to infiltrate the hold, ordered Tsunade, to which Shikaku just nodded. This meeting is dismissed, said Tsunade to the council. As the council members were leaving, many were muttering about what they had learned, many were talking about what they were going to do, and ways they could save the princess and Kurenai and the others. While some others like Danzo, Kaharu and the civilian members were commenting that this was a mistake and a waste of valuable resources that could be put to better use. Tsunade could only scoff at them. After they had all left, she then started to leave the room. She needed a drink badly, but knew she couldn't, since she had stopped drinking ever since Naruto was banished. First, most of our allies and clients turned their back on us for banishing Naruto. Then the Heavenly Alliance is formed and takes most of our missions from us. Then Orochimaru rebuilds Oto's forces and gathers Iwa, Kiri, Kusa into the Hanyu clan to ally against us, and now this. Things seem to only get worse and worse for us, thought Swand. After which she then looked out to the blue cloudless sky. Is this the heaven's wrath on us for turning our backs on Naruto, or is it you Naruto who is punishing this village from the heavens for betraying you? 2 days later in a prison cell in the hold. Currently laying on top of her bed in her cell was Sakura. She and the others had been in the prison for about a week. They arrived at the hold after a 4-day trip from where they were ambushed to here. After they had arrived they were all separated and put into different cells, although she did know that Karini was in the cell on her right, while the princess was in the cell on her left. They could not make contact with one another. Sakura was wearing a standard grey prison outfit with a long short-sleeved shirt and long grey trousers with normal sandals. She also had a collar around her neck with special seals placed on it, where it suppressed her chakra and kept her from using it. It also would paralyze her body, should any of the guards activate it, and if she tried to tamper with it, it would explode with enough force to blow her head off. Fortunately for the past week nothing had happened so far in being held in the hold, since they hadn't been interrogated yet for information, which was fine by her. Although she knew that eventually they would start soon enough, they were mostly likely deciding what to do with them, and how to interrogate them. As she lay on her bed looking up at the ceiling, she had not much to do other than think about how things had changed since Naruto banishment. Thinking about him made her think about how much of a cold-hearted and selfish bitch she was to him. She remembered how she used to fawn over Sasuke, all because he was talented, handsome and from a powerful and noble clan, in which due to her stupid crush over him, it had cost her a good friend that she truly never deserved. It made her sick as she remembered how weak and foolish she had been, where she spent all her time trying to look nice for Sasuke, while she could have used the time to train and get stronger. She then began to remember where the truth was finally slapped in her face by Tsunade, who had revealed to her how stupid, selfish and weak she had been for the past few years, as she fawned over Sasuke. Flashback. No. That wrong. If you did that to a patient you would block the patient coronary artery, and give the patient a heart attack. Haven't you been listening to me? If you had you would know not to do that. Now we will start all over again and keep doing this until you get it perfect, is that clear? Spoke Tsunade angrily as if she was speaking to an dunce. Sakura at the time was barely containing her temper at this moment, since she had been belittled, hassled, undermined, insulted and pressured for weeks by Tsunade. Ever since she started this training course to be a medic nin, everything she did was either wrong or not good enough by Tsunade's standards. No matter how hard she tried, Tsunade would always find something wrong with what she did. The way Tsunade treated her made her feel as if she was a complete moron that could do nothing right. Are you even listening to what I'm telling you, or are you off in your own little world, dreaming about how you and your beloved traitor will be having your wedding round at Tsunade and saying traitor with venom? Don't you dare call Sasuke-kun a traitor. He wasn't well when he left. The crucial made him leave the village with how it messed with his mind, said Sakura as she stood up to Tsuade. If you believe that tripe that the civilians are spouting, then you're even more deluded than I even thought, scoffed Tsuade. Sakura just balled her fist in anger and glared at Tsunade and then snarled out. You're just taking out your anger out on me because Naruto got banished from the village. What did you just say? Snarled Tsunade as she let out a small amount of killing intent, since she was barely reining in her temper and keeping herself from strangling the girl. But despite this, Sakura held her ground and then started to shout out. You heard me. You and the others are all blaming me and Sasuke-kun for Naruto being banished when it was clear that he was losing control of the Kyuubi. Look at what he did to Sasuke-kun. If he had stayed, then he would have eventually destroyed the village, or those Akatsuki guys who hurt Kakashi-sensei would have come back and destroyed the village to get him. We're better off without him gone now. He was a threat to the village, but you and the other refused to see that. After her little rant, Sakura took in a few deep breaths to calm herself down a bit, in which she started to feel a little better, knowing that she had finally stood up to her teacher, although that pride only lasted for a second or two, before Tsunade grabbed her by the throat and slammed her into the wall, making a large dent in it, and held her up high enough so that she would be at eye level with Tsuade. When Sakura looked into the Hokage golden eyes, she saw them filled with uncontrolled rage and fury. The look in her eyes paralyzed Sakura with fear. Shizune, who was in the room as well, was about to step in and try and save Sakura from her master's anger, but was stopped by a look that Tsunade gave her, that clearly told her not to butt in. Let me tell you something, you little tramp, saying it with venom. Did you know the real reason why Naruto was the dead last in your class? Snarled Tsunade as she looked Sakura right in the eye. Sakura did not answer, since she couldn't even move, since Tsunade had a vice-like grip on her throat, and she could barely breathe, let alone move, since her entire body was frozen with pure terror at the killing intent that Tsunade was unleashing, and the look of pure rage and hatred that filled her eyes. Well, I tell you why. The only reason why Naruto was the dead last was because of ignorant fools like you in this school decided to sabotage his training by giving him old school books that were unreadable or behind in current teaching. They taught him the wrong things when training him in taijutsu. They even ignored him when he asked for help, and gave him questions that only Jonin level ninjas would know. Which was why I had the majority of the teachers in the academy fired, as well as half of the hospital staff, when they refused to treat Naruto when he was hurt when he was younger, and why I made sure that they would never practice medicine again, and why I had them and the teachers from the academy sent to Ibiki for 3 months after I learned about what they'd done to Naruto after he was banished, snarled Tsunade, after which she then continued. But even despite all the handicaps that the teachers gave him in the academy, he was still able to learn the Kage Bunshin Jutsu, a B-rank Jonin level ninjutsu technique, and the Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, an advanced A-rank forbidden technique of the Kage Bunshin Jutsu, in just 3 hours without any help, and defeated your former teacher Mizuki by himself when he turned traitor. He even saved your miserable worthless life when he defeated that Garia kid during the invasion of Suna and Oto. He also convinced me to come back to this cesspit of a village, to help your beloved Uchiha, when Itachi mopped the floor with him. Not only that, but when he was on that mission to bring me back here, he learned and mastered the Rasengan, one of the Yondai most powerful techniques, which took him 3 years to develop and master. Well, it took your sensei Hatake 6 months to master it and Jiraiya a month, but for Naruto, it only took him 1 week to master it. He was even protecting this thankless village every day of his life from the Kyuubi, by keeping it contained, and for that bigotry idiots like you beat him up 3 days a week for what he contained, and after every beating he got he had to go to the hospital. He even got worse beatings on his birthdays, which was the day when the Kyuubi was sealed into him, and he lost his parents. But even despite all he went through, he still remained loyal to this worthless village. And what did fools like you do to return his loyalty? You banished him all because what was done to him when he was just a baby, and for hurting your precious Uchiha when he turned traitor. She then tightened her grip around Sakura's neck, almost choking her. And you have the gall to do the things you did to him, and then call him a monster, surprising Sakura. Oh yes, I heard what you did to Naruto, and how you used to beat him up at the academy, for practically no reason other than him being himself, or to make you feel better about yourself. I've read your file. Your skills are practically, since they're still at academy level. You might have shown some skill in Yuki no Kuni, as well as shown good chakra control, but that it. The only real reason you even passed was because you passed the academic part of the academy, which goes to show how far the academy has fallen. If little sluts like you are our top Kunoichi, spat Tsunade, after which she continued. I've even seen the recording of your match against Inoichi daughter in the Chunin exam, and it was by far the most pathetic match I ever seen in my life. It little tramps like you are what brings down the name Kunoichi. Even Inoichi daughter has shown more improvement in skill than you've. I'm willing to bet that if I check with Hatake, he tell me that he, the Uchiha and Naruto were all the ones who did the real fighting on you missions. Will you head behind them in the sidelines? It also shows how incompetent Hatake was as a sensei. If he thought you were ready for the Chunin exam, since clearly you weren't, and if you weren't then the whole team wasn't. You're nothing more than a cheap little whore, who wanted to be the personal bitch to a traitor, who couldn't give a rat's ass about you, and cared nothing about anyone but himself. The only reason why I even decided to take you as my student was as a favor to Naruto, since I knew he cared about you, which I still don't even see why he did after all the things you did to him. You're nothing more than a gold-digging whore who goes and worships the feet of traitors like the Uchiha, who should have been jailed for the rest of his life for what he did, while real heroes like Naruto are treated like trash. As well as spit on and then banished despite everything they done for you all. Said Tsunade angrily, in which as she continued she was shattering all of Sakura's beliefs, and was shattered the world that Sakura had formed around herself, since as much as she didn't want to believe it, what Tsunade was saying was true. You're a weak and sorry excuse of a ninja that follows the tailcoats of real ninjas, and beat up those you know won't fight back like Naruto, just to make up for your weakness, and make yourself feel better. I suggest that you better shape up quickly, girl, because if you don't you might as well quit, since if you don't you just get yourself or your teammates killed, or even worse, become the personal whore of some bandit or enemy ninja, and for your own sake, you better hope it the former of those three. This village didn't deserve heroes like Naruto after all they done. Did you know that he had 2 holes in his chest when he came back from his mission to bring your Uchiha back, one of which was just an inch to his heart, and both holes were caused by your sensei's prize technique, the Chidori, the move that he taught your great and mighty Uchiha. Did you also know that whenever Naruto used the Kyuubi chakra, it causes him massive damage and pain to his body? By the time he got back to the village carrying your Uchiha, he was half dead, and nearly died when he got here. I was barely even able to save him, but despite all that, all he asked about was how was the Uchiha, and if he was able to keep his promise to you about bringing him back to you. You make me sick to my stomach because he did that all for you, and after you cried your eyes out to him to bring him back to you, and what thanks did he get from you? None. That what you just beat him up just because he hurt your Uchiha. Snarled Tsunade as she then threw Sakura across the room, where she hit the wall, making another dent in it. When Sakura came to her senses from hitting the wall, Tsunade threw a large 10-inch thick folder that was on her desk to Sakura. "Read it and you may finally see how much of a stupid little tramp you've been. Now get out," snarled Tsunade. As Sakura got up, she just stood there holding the folder, not moving, after which Tsunade then roared out, "I told you to get out of my office. I don't want to even see you ever again in this office unless I see some major change in you, because if I haven't, you will becoming my next sparring partner for the MONTH, and I have a lot of stress to work out." Sakura then ran out the office as quickly as she could, not wanting to be on the receiving end of Tsunade's wrath again, and become her personal punching bag for a month. Flashback ends. Later on, after that incident with Tsunade, Sakura read the folder that Tsunade gave her. The folder was a copy of Naruto's personal file that contained all his information, the injuries he had suffered over the years, which took place 3 times every week like Tsunade had said. It even mentioned how his shinobi education had been sabotaged by the teachers. It even mentioned how he tried to kill himself twice when he was only 8 and nearly died both times, and would have had the Anbu guarding him not gotten him to the hospital in time. It also stated how Naruto only got the bare minimal treatment that he needed to have when injured at the hospital, and only got the bare minimal social welfare funds from the civilian council, which was why he lived in a run-down apartment and could only eat at Ichiraku Ramen, since they were the only place that wouldn't overcharge him for food, or kick him out, or give him rotten out-of-date food. The folder also described in detail how Naruto was beaten, the worst being on October 10th on his birthday, and the anniversary of the Kyuubi attack. The folder stated that he had over 380 assassination attempts on his life, by either ninjas or civilians, while he had been attacked by mobs 630 times. When Sakura had finally finished, she started to cry at what had happened to Naruto, finally realizing what he must have gone through in his life, and how despite everything that happened to him, he had a smile on his face. It made it even worse for her knowing that she added to his pain and suffering, and at how wrong she had been about him. A few days later, after much soul-searching, she also realized that Tsunade had been right about her, after which she then made a vow to get stronger in hope of one day that she could find a way to bring Naruto back, and find some way of earning his forgiveness, even though she knew there was a little chance of that ever happening after what she had done. Since much like what Kakashi had told them when they first became a team in the ninja world, those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their friends are worse than scum, and she defiantly fitted in that category after what she did to Naruto. Soon after, she went back to Tsunade and went on her hands and knees and told her she had finally seen how much of a stupid naive fool she had been, and said that she would do anything Tsunade said if she agreed to train her again. She also swore that she wouldn't question Tsunade ever again. Tsunade had then asked her why should she train her again, and why did she want to get stronger. In which Sakura answered that she had no answer as to why Tsunade should train her again, but told her that she wanted to get stronger, so that she could find a way to bring Naruto back to Konoha, and find a way to repent for her sins, and in some small way earn his forgiveness. She had even told Tsunade that if she did not train her, she would find someone else to train her, or even train herself until she got stronger. After what she had said, Tsunade had agreed to train her again, since she had been impressed with her answer, and saw that she had really changed for the better. The training over the years was hard, and Tsunade was just as strict and harsh a teacher as she was before, but Sakura had not complained at all, and over the years the results showed later on at how stronger she had gotten, and how skilled she was as a medic nin now. Sakura also remembered the day when she heard about Naruto's death at the hands of the Akatsuki. She remembered how much she had cried that day at home when she heard. She wept at Naruto being killed after everything that had happened to him in his life, and at how she never got the chance to tell Naruto how sorry she was for what she had done to him, and to try and earn his forgiveness. She knew that no matter how many times she said she was sorry, she could never make up for what she had done to him. As she thought this, a small single tear fell down her face. "Naruto, I'm sorry," she thought sadly as she closed her eyes. Outside the prison at one of the lookout towers. "Hey Hayaki, how it going?" asked Akiri Ninja. "Oh? Hey Ryama, not so bad, just boring as usual. Only thing of interest was those 5 supply ships that arrived a few minutes ago, and are docking at the supply dock," replied Hayaki. "No real surprise, since no one would be stupid enough to attack us here," Ryama said. "Isn't that the truth? Although I have to say I give a lot right now for a little action," said Hayaki. "Hey, did you hear we got a few new prisoners last week? 4 of them were Konoha ninjas, 2 of which were women, and not bad looking ones at that. Well, another prisoner with them was the princess of Yumi no Kuni," Ryama said. "Seriously, man, I've to say the Mizukage has got some balls kidnapping the princess of another country like that," said Hayaki. "The more it seems that when our guys kidnapped her, she was on her way to Tsuki no Kuni, since she was going to marry the crown prince of the country," replied Ryama. "Man, The Mizukage is taking a big gambit with this move of his. He risking pissing off not only 2 countries, but also risking pissing off the Heavenly Alliance, said Hayaki. But why would it piss off the Heavenly Alliance? Neither country is a member of the Heavenly Alliance, asked Ryama. But Tsuki no Kuni is allied to the Heaven Alliance. Not to mention I heard that the Raikage and the Prince of Tsuki no Kuni are good friends with one another, hence it will most likely piss him off that we kidnapped the fiancé of a friend of his, and if he pissed off then the rest of the Heavenly Alliance will be too, said Hayaki worriedly. This caused Ryama to shudder in fear at the idea of the Raikage, Akarashi no Oni, the demon of storms being anger. Any man that can single-handedly destroy an entire fleet of 50 warships that contained an army of over 10,000 men with a single jutsu is man that should be greatly feared. Maybe, but even Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance wouldn't attack this place. It would take a massive armada of ships and a small army to take this place, and by the time they even broke through the main defenses, reinforcements from Kiri would arrive. Not to mention we have the new volley guns on our ships and guard towers, as well as have those new handheld versions of it, answered Ryama. You might be right there, but Hayaki was saying before he stopped in mid-sentence and was looking up at the sky. But what? Asked Ryama. What are you looking at? Look, do you see that? Hayaki said, pointing up at the sky. Ryama looked to where Hayaki was pointing. When he did look, he saw a large oval-shaped object heading towards the prison. What is it? Asked Ryama. Hayaki then took the binocular he had on the nearby stand and looked through them and said, "It looks like some kind of ship," answered Hayaki. A ship? But that impossible ships don't fly, shouted Ryama. I wouldn't say that I heard stories that in Yuki no Kuni they have ships like these, and said Hayaki, but stopped again when he released something. What? Said Ryama, slightly panicky. It the Heavenly Alliance, they're here, that ship belongs to them, shouted Hayaki worriedly. What? Said Ryama again. Don't you realize Yuki no Kuni is part of the Heavenly Alliance, and they have those types of ships, not to mention look at the symbol on the ship, shouted Hayaki as he handed the binocular to Ryama. When he looked, he saw the large airship. When he then saw the large symbol of Kumagakure on the side of the airship, he also saw that the airship was carrying a large metal craft on its underside. It was then, as the 2 men were gawking at the airship, that a large bright flash of blue light was seen from the ship, and a blot of energy came from it, and hit the weapons storage building, which caused it to explode, and created a massive explosion in the prison. Should we're under attack, sound the alarm, roared Hayaki, after which he hit the alarm button, sounding off the alarm in the prison. On board the Kumo airship. On board the bridge of the Kumo airship, a young crewman walked up to the captain and saluted to him and said, "Captain, we have hit the enemy's storage building, causing massive confusion in the prison as planned, and we are halfway charging up the lightning cannon." The lightning cannon was a new special weapon that was built for Kumo airships to produce a massive burst of electric energy created by the generators on board the airships, which is reflected back by an external alignment mirror that were on the front of the balloon part of the airship, right underneath the ornamental dragon's head, and focused by a second mirror connected to the alignment mirror, and concentrated into a large single burst of energy, in which it had enough power to destroy a small building. The only drawback though was it took 30 seconds for the cannon to recharge every time. Very good. Now have all ballistas, volley guns and ninjas on the catwalks fire on the locations that they were each given, then fire on the barracks entrance on the cliffside in the prison, combined with what the Mizu rebel factions are doing. That should delay the forces stationed there long enough for us to complete our mission, ordered the captain, to which the crewman saluted, and gave out the captain orders out to the crew on the ship's intercom. As the crewman gave out his orders to the rest of the crew, the captain looked down from his viewpoint at the famed prison of Kiri. Behold. The prison was built into a crescent moon-shaped canyon that was next to the sea. It had a large seawall in front of the prison, with 4 large metal gates that would open to allow prison ships to enter, and had a small docking point for each gateway. It also had several towers built on the wall and on the cliff sides around the prison. There was even a small supply docking area built underneath the cliffs that were next to the seawall on its left-hand side, and an underground tunnel that led from the prison to the supply docking area. The prison itself was 20 stories high, and was pentagon-shaped. Also around it were several small buildings that held the lunch building for the guards, which was now in ruin due to explosion that the Mizu rebel faction spies caused when many of the on-duty Kiri shinobi guards were having their lunch, as well as the storage area for all their weapons, which was now destroyed as well, and several other buildings. Also built into the cliffside was the barracks for the 600 shinobi stationed there to guard the prison, and on the small outer islands off the prisons were several small docks that had a small fleet of 20 ships in total stationed there to protect the prison. As the captain looked down, he saw the towers and several other points around the hold being fired upon by his ship and being destroyed, each of the towers, and the points that were destroyed were where carry new volley guns were, and the storage building that was now destroyed held the handheld volley guns. He also saw the radio tower being destroyed, which kept the remaining Kyrionins below confused and kept them from getting orders from the prison command point. Captain, all target enemy volley guns have been destroyed, as has the radio tower, spoke another crewman. But then begin the second stage of the operation. Have the 3 teams launch from the ship, after which drop the package and fire the smoke bombs on the open area of the prison. After that we are to pull away and head home, since the rest will be up to the recovery team. Order the captain, to which the crew saluted and did as he was told. After the radio tower and all the volley guns were destroyed, 12 Kumo wing gliders were launched from the airship. As they flew in the air, they started to drop bombs, kunais, shurikens and fire lighting, wind, fire and raiden jutsus on the already confused Kiri ninjas, who were busy trying to figure out what was happening, and trying to put out the fires that were erupting all around from the explosions that were happening in the prison. Soon after the gliders were launched into the air, the airship dropped the craft that it was carrying into the water, and once it hit the water, it caused a massive tidal wave that went right over the seawall, and flooded the entire open area with water, washing away the Kiri ninjas in the open area, causing more confusion in the prison. Once the airship dropped the craft, it fired several large smoke bombs covering the entire prison with black smoke. Once that was done, the airship quickly turned around and left. Once the black smoke covered the prison, the Kumo ninjas that were on the wing builders descended down and landed on the seawall. At the same time, the craft that the airship dropped appeared above the water surface and opened a rectangular-shaped hatch on the top of its hull, and revealed a volley gun that fired hundreds of explosive kunais over the seawall and onto the prison. After which it then sealed the hatch and went back under the water, and continued to do this every so often in a different place. Rescue team viewpoint. Once they had their wing builders off their backs, the commander of the rescue teams, who wore a falcon-shaped Anbu mask with black lines, symbolizing him as the member of the Storm Division like the rest of the team, spoke, where he quickly gave orders to his teams. Alright everyone, this is a 300 seconds, that 5 minutes for anyone who is unsure, blitz attack in which we've to rescue the princess, the Konoha team, and release all the other prisoners and be out in that time frame. Team 3 will stay out on the open area, and using the smoke to sneak up and attack any and all Kiri ninjas, keeping them confused and keeping any from entering the prison itself. Team 2 will enter with us and lay down the foundation work for our little surprise for the Kiri nins. Sparrow and I will release the princess and the Konoha Kunoichis. Raven, you will release the male Konoha nins, and Hawk, you will go to the control center and release the rest of the prisoners, and release the coded message to them through the intercom. Now you all have your orders, now move out. Order Falcon, which all the members replied with a hi and moved out. The Hull Command Point. The Hull Command Point was built on the cliff side of the canyon, and directly behind the prison itself, and overlooking it. Currently the command center was in utter chaos right now, trying to figure out what was happening and what was going on. It was then that the commander of the prison entered the command center. What the hell is going on here? Who is attacking us? And where are the enemy? Roared the commander. Sir? Saluted a Kiri ninja and answered the commander's questions. I am afraid that we are under attack by forces we believe to belong to Kumagakure. We were fired upon by an airship that has had the Kumagakure symbol on it, in which after a minute or so of attacking us, the ship launched some small flying gliders carrying enemy shinobis. It then dropped some other craft into the water, and can somehow move underwater and surface to fire on us, and then go down again before we can do anything to it. The airship then dropped several large smoke bombs covering the entire prison, so we can't see what is going on, after which the airship then left, and our remaining forces that are in the open area are in complete confusion right now, since the enemy also hit our radio tower, so we can't contact our forces out there. What about the rest of our forces? Why the hell aren't they out there? Shouted the commander. I'm afraid that the enemy airship fired on the main entrance out of the barracks in the cliffside that leads to the open area and destroyed the entrance. The rest of our men are trying to get out through the emergency entrances, but it will take 5 minutes before they are all out. Also, a large number of our men have been killed when an explosion erupted in the mess hall, when many of our men were eating their afternoon meal, and our hidden volley guns have also been destroyed by several other explosions. We believe that the explosions was caused by exploding notes planted by rebel spies from the rebel factions that infiltrated the prison, and we just received reports that a large force of rebel ninjas from the rebel factions have taken over the supply docking area, and are moving through the underground entrance into the prison. It seems that they disguised their ships to look like our supply ships, so that they could sneak into the supply docking area, replied the Kirinin. Damn those Kumo bastards, the commander shouted as he slammed his fist onto the desk next to him. Are they working with the rebel factions? They must be after the princess at the prison. It's the only explanation why they are here and attacking us. He then turned to the Kyrienin he had been talking to. Have our entire forces get out to the open area as fast as they can, and secure the prison as quickly as possible. We can't let them get away with the princess. Yes sir, answered the Kyrienin and quickly went to do what the commander had ordered. You won't get away with this, you Kumo scum, I swear, thought the commander as he looked out at the smoke-filled prison with small explosions been seen every so often. Rescue Team General Viewpoint. As Kurenai looked out her small bar window, she could see the explosion and smoke outside, and could not help but wonder what was going on. It was oblivious that the prison was under attack. She knew it wasn't Konoha, since they couldn't have heard of their capture, and mounted a rescue attempt so soon, not to mention she didn't think that they would come and use the limited resources that they would need for the war to simply rescue them. Could it be the rebel factions in Mizunokuni attacking the prison? No, they wouldn't have the resources to make such an attack, but if it not them, then who? Thought Kurenai. It was then that she heard a knock and a voice from behind the cell door. Hello you Hisiritobi Kurenai, are you in there? Called the voice. Yes, I'm. Who is there? Asked Kurenai. My name is Falcon, my team, and I've come to rescue you and the princess of Yumi no Kuni. Now please step away from the door, I'm going to blow it, said Falcon, which Kurenai obeyed. As soon as she moved away, the steel door blew open and the room filled with smoke. When Kurenai stepped out of her cell room, she also saw Sakura and Princess Sachi stepping out of their own cells at the same time. After which she then saw two Anbu masked men. The men wore typical Anbu armor and clothes, and the only strange thing about them was that their masks were blue with black lines and markings around their masks. This was strange since she had never seen Anbu from any country wearing masks like theirs. Thank you, but who are you? Asked Kurenai. My codename is Falcon and my comrade here is Sparrow. We are with Kumo Lead Storm Division, answered Falcon. Kumo? But why are you trying to save the princess? Yumi no Kuni is not with the Heavenly Alliance, nor is it allied with it, and the same for our village, said Kurenai. Although it is true that Yumi no Kuni is not allied with us, nor is it a member of the Heavenly Alliance, Tsuki no Kuni is allied to us, and Princess Sachi is the fiancée of the Crown Prince Hikaru, and is hence the future queen of Tsuki no Kuni. Since that is the case, we cannot let the future queen of Tsuki no Kuni to be held prisoner by the Mizukage or the Mizu Daimyo. Not to mention Lady Daimyo Kicho was greatly angered when she heard that the princess was captured, as was the Raikage, answered Falcon. Lady Kicho sent you to rescue me? Asked Princess Sachi, and a wave of gratitude filled her heart for the Lady Daimyo of Kaminari no Kuni, Lightning Country. Yes, she and the Raikage sent us to rescue you as well as the Konoha ninjas that were supposed to protect you, said Falcon, although Kurenai and Sakura caught the harshness of his words. Although we are grateful for rescuing us, the question why are you? I can understand why the princess now but not us, asked Kurenai. I'm afraid that I cannot answer your questions now, there is not enough time, and we need to get out now. The Falcon said quickly. Before Kurenai could reply, all the prison doors opened automatically and a voice was heard over the announcer. Attention all prisoners, you are to make your way to the supply docking port. Your friends are, and here to rescue you. The code word is Blue Pearl. I repeat, the code word is Blue Pearl. What was that about? What's going on? Asked Kurenai. It a code word that is known to all rebel shinobis and other rebel members in Mizu no Kuni, where if they hear a message from an unknown force and that word is mentioned, then it tells them that the unknown force is a friend, and that they are telling the truth. Now there no more time, we only have 200 seconds left to get out, said the Falcon fiercely, where he then turned to the princess. Princess, I'm afraid that I must have you get on Sparrow back, since you do not have the training to keep up with our speed, so you must get on his back, so that you won't slow us down, said the Falcon politely, but the urgency in his voice could be heard. I understand, said the princess as Sparrow turned his back and kneed down, so that the princess could get on his back. As the princess got on Sparrow back, Sakura quickly asked, but what about Lee and Choji? We can't just leave them here. Don't worry, one of my men is rescuing your comrades. Now we must move, we don't have much time left, ordered Falcon in a commanding tone, in which he took off with Sparrow and the princess right behind him, who was closely followed by Kurenai and Sakura. As they ran, Falcon started to speak on his radio that was connected to his mask. Raven, this is Falcon, what is your situation, over? After which a voice replied. Falcon, this is Raven, over. Have secured the packages heading to Point Alpha, will arrive in 50 seconds, over. Roger, Raven. Falcon out, replied Falcon, in which he then said. Swallow, this is Falcon, both Raven, and I've secured our packages. What is your timeline until the surprise is ready? After which another voice replied. Falcon, this is Swallow, over. Half of the surprise is ready, should be finished of scheduled time, we'll meet you at Point Alpha as scheduled, over. Very good, see you then, over, replied Falcon, in which he then said again. Hawk, this is Falcon, what your situation? After which another voice replied. Falcon, this is Hawk, making my way to the point. Alpha will arrive 40 seconds. Over. Roger, Hawk out, said Falcon. Crane, this is Falcon, what is your situation? Over. After which yet another voice replied. Falcon, this is Crane. Over. The path is still clear, and the mice are still scurrying around. Situation is still good. Many mice are dead, but more are on their way. Suggest we not delay. Over. Message received. Crane. Over. We'll meet up with other flights at Point Alpha at scheduled time, and we'll meet you at Point Delta at scheduled time. Just continue to keep the path clear. Over, replied Falcon. Roger, Falcon will do. Over and out, said Crane. As Falcon was talking to his men on the radio, Kurenai saw prisoners running down an opposite hallway and jumping into a hole in the floor. As she and the others continued, she also saw rebel Kirinins killing the re-aiming Nin guards and helping the other prisoners to escape. She then saw Falcon finishing speaking with his men on the radio and asked, "Where are those other prisoners going? Why aren't we following them?" asked Kurini, to which Falcon answered, "We have our own way home as dose the rebels, so we don't need to follow them, nor do we don't need to worry about them. Now come, we can't delay," said Falcon as they continued on. Soon enough they were at the main entrance of the prison, where 6 more storm nins were waiting for them. Along with them were 2 other people that Kurenai, Princess Sachi and Sakura knew well. "Lee? Choji? You're okay?" cried Sakura with relief clear in her voice. "Yes, we are, thanks to these youthful shinobis from Kumagakure," said Lee with his trademark shining smile and thumbs up. "Swallow, did you finish laying things out for our little surprise for the Kirinin?" asked Falcon as he came up to the other storm nins. "Yes sir," answered Swallow. "Good. Now we only have 100 seconds left to get to Point Delta and reach the rendezvous point with the swordfish, or else we will become permanent guests here," said Falcon. He then turned Kurini and the others and said, "Come. We have to move there, no time to waste." After which they all started to run out into the smoke-filled open area. "Stay together and stick close to us and don't separate or fall behind, because if you do you get lost in the smoke and be captured again, and we won't rescue this time," orders Stormonbu to the Konoha nin, who wore an owl-shaped mask, and was clearly female by figure of her body and sound of her voice. As they ran through the smoke they were met by another squad of Stormonbu. One of them had a crane-shaped mask, and spoke to Falcon. "Sir, the enemy reinforcements are moving in on the open area, so we may still run in on some Kirinins, but most of them seem to be heading for the prison itself. Many are covering the open area. I suggest we not delay since our smoke cover will soon be gone, and they will quickly surround us," spoke Crane. "Right then, we have to hurry. We only have less than 100 seconds left before we have to get to our rendezvous point, and if we miss it, then we're finished," said Falcon. As they hurried, the Stormonbu suddenly stopped the Konoha team, wondering what was going on to make the storm nins stop, where they decided to ask what was wrong. "What is wrong? Why did we stop?" asked Sakura. "We're surrounded," answered a crow-faced storm nin in a whisper-like voice. "What? How can you tell? I don't sense anything, and how can they know we're here, since they can't see anything through the smoke screen?" whispered Sakura. "They must have a sensor-type shinobi with them. It's the only answer at how they were able to find us so quickly and surround us," answered Hawk. "But how do you know that they're there? We haven't sensed them," asked Choji. "You forget the Kirinins are trained in the art of silent killing technique. Although there are few who are true master of the style, many of their shinobi are still highly skilled in it. As for why we know they're there, Stormonbu are trained to sense out for enemy shinobis with our chakra, much like a sensor-type shinobis, but we can only sense them if they're nearby, but that enough to fight against them, even with just sensing for their chakra. Since all Stormonbu agents are trained in the blind assassin art of fighting," spoke Raven. This of course surprised Kurenai and caused her to gasp in shock. "What is Kurenai-san, and what is the blind assassin art? I never heard of it," asked Lee. "That because it's a very old fighting skill used before the founding of the shinobi villages. As the name states, it is a style of fighting that is used by shinobis that can't see, and it was said to be one of the most lethal assassin styles to exist. According to what Anko told me, it relies on either sound, chakra or smell, since the user who is trained in it can use any of them and kill or fight their target, even if they can't see them. From what I heard, it takes excellent control over one's chakra to be able to sense a person in the way you need to, and have complete control over your senses to react and move the way you need to as well. From what Anko told me, a true master of the art can find an enemy in the pitch black of night, and kill a person without them ever knowing, since learning the style also allows the user to be able to move right up to a person, without making a sound or letting the enemy know you're there. It even said that the silent killing technique that Kira uses originated from it, but that technique only comes from the assassin part of the style. They can't fight in a battle, without being able to see their enemy like most people," said Kurenai, and at the same time thought, "But I thought that style was lost ages ago. How on earth did Kumo learn that art?" The other members of the Konoha team were shocked at what they heard, since if what Kurenai said was true, then Kumo's storm nins were far more skilled and dangerous than their own Onbu. Sparrow, you and Crane's team protect the princess and the Konoha ninjas, since they can't use their chakra with those colors on. The rest of you are with me, ordered Falcon, where he and the other Storm Onbu ninjas disappeared into the smoke while Crane and his team surrounded Sparrow, the princess and the Konoha team. For several seconds the Konoha team listened out to try and hear out for any sounds of fighting between the Kiri ninjas and the Storm Onbu. But during the time they heard nothing except for slashing-like sounds and swishing sounds of weapons sailing through the air. After about 12 seconds the smoke around them started to thin out a bit, so that they could finally see what was happening around them. What they saw shocked them beyond belief. Up to 30 Carrion bodies were around them with kunais in their heads or necks, or with their heads cut off and stabbed or slashed marks on their necks or other areas of their bodies. When they saw all this, the Konoha ninjas and the princess could not help but be unnerved at the carnage they saw around them, with 30 skilled Kiri shinobis having been slaughtered by 7 Storm Onbu ninjas in just a matter of seconds. This just proved what they believed about the Storm Onbu ninjas, that they were extremely powerful ninjas far above their own Onbu divisions, since they knew that except for 2 or 3 Onbu agents none of Konoha Onbu ninjas could do what they just did within the time frame. Hurry, we must move now, to almost time, cried Falcon, in which they quickly started to move as fast as they could. As their NL quickly spoke. There are more right ahead of us. Then we have to fight and run at the same time, since we can't afford to delay any longer. We only got 50 seconds left, said Falcon. As their N2 Carrions came out of the smoke right in front of them and charged right at them. Quickly 2 of the Storm Agent intercepted them and blocked their incoming attacks with their katanas. As soon as the Carrions' attacks were blocked, 2 more Storm Agents jumped above their comrades and killed the Carrions by stabbing downward with their katanas onto the unsuspecting Carrions' heads before they could do anything to avoid or block the Storm Nin's attack. Just as soon as the bodies of the 2 Carrions fell dead, the 2 Storm Ninjas that killed them then grabbed a hold of the other 2 Storm Ninjas that had blocked the Carrions' attacks and threw them into the air, where they intercepted and killed 2 more Carrions that were about to jump down from the air, in which the Storm Ninjas killed them in midair. At the same time 4 more Carrions appeared from the left-hand side, but before they could attack, Owl appeared in front of the group and swung her blade and cried out in horizontal slash. Kazuin Jutsu, Crescent Wind, which created a crescent-shaped blade of wind that hit all 4 shinobis at once and cut them in half. But as soon as the attacks on the front and left-hand side were dealt with, 20 more Carrions appeared from behind, in which Hawk and Falcon quickly jumped in between their group and the Carrions. All of you keep going on, we deal with these lot and catch up with you, ordered Falcon. You heard him, let's move, ordered Raven. But as they started to run, Lee stopped and started to head back to where Falcon and Hawk were fighting the Carrions. Lee, where are you going? We need to stick together, said Sakura, trying to stop her friend. I'm going to help Hawk-san and Falcon-san fight the Carrions, since I cannot let such youthful fellows fight so many unyouthful shinobis by themselves. Also, the chakra bands do not really affect me, since I cannot use my chakra anyhow, and I only use my taijutsu, which will not be affected, answered Lee. Lee will be fine, Sakura. He right, those bands do not really affect him, said Kurenai to Sakura, after which she then turned to Lee. But you better not fall behind, Lee. I've no intention of telling Kumo that we left you behind. Do not worry, Kurenai-san, I have no intention either in staying in this unyouthful place any longer. Also, I have no intention leaving my darling flower Yakumo and my little sunshine Fuku alone, answered Lee with his trademark shining smile and thumbs up, after which he started to run where the left Falcon and Hawk. Falcon and Hawk fighting. As Falcon and Hawk fought the Carrions, they knew that if they did not finish this soon, that they would miss their rendezvous with the swordfish and be stuck here. As they fought, a Carry Chunin tried to strike them from above, but before either could defend themselves, a voice screamed out. Konoha Senk, Leaf Whirlwind. As they looked above, they saw the Carry Chunin being kicked away by Lee. As he landed back down, Hawk turned to him and asked, "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be with the others." "I came here to help you, my youthful friends, since you were kind enough to save us. I thought it only right that I help you to return the favor, since the colors don't really affect me, since I can't use any chakra to begin with," answered Lee. "Very well, just watch yourself. Although you don't need chakra to fight to your full strength, those colors still can paralyze your body if they activate it," said Falcon. Lee nodded and rushed off and attacked 2 more Kiri Chunins. Lee quickly ducked a stab to his head from one of the Chunin, and quickly punched him in the gut, and then spin kicked him to the ribs, sending him flying. He then blocked a kick to his side from the other Chunin, and pushed the other Chunin away. He then punched the man in the head, and sent him a powerful knee in the stomach, followed by a strong kick to the side of the man's head, sending him crashing to the ground. As Lee finished defeating the 2 Chunin, he turned to where Hawk and Falcon were fighting the main part of the group. When Lee turned, he could not help but be in awe at how the 2 men fought. The 2 of them fought like a perfect team, side by side, each with their back to the other, and defending each other back. The two of them fought in perfect sequence with one another, where if Hawk attacked Falcon would defend, and if Falcon attacked Hawk would defend. The two slashed and cut the surrounding Kyrianins with their katanas like they were noting. The two moved as if they were of one mind, and knew what the other was going to do on pure instinct. It was as if they were doing some kind of dance at the way they moved with one another. 2. Lee then quickly turned back to see a Kiri Jonin heading towards him carrying a large sword. After quickly dodging a few fast strikes from the Jonin sword, Lee sent a hard kick to the side of the Jonin, but was blocked by the blunt of the Jonin blade. The Jonin then did a few one-handed hand seals and cried out Sutin. Mizukami Kiri, water style. Rising water slicer, in which a massive jet of water rushed through the ground and was so powerful that it was able to slice through the solid stone ground. Fortunately, Lee was just able to narrowly avoid it, with just a few cuts on his face. The Jonin then was about to do a hand sign to activate the collar around his neck. Lee knew it when he saw it, since one of the guards used it on him when he tried to fight back when they first put him in his cell. Lee then quickly sped across the distance between them and got to him just in time to stop him from activating the collar, in which Lee hit him with his Konoha SHMFK, Leaf Rising Wind, which shot the Jonin into the air, where Lee then used his Kagebain, Shadow of the Dancing Leaf, where he then appeared behind the Jonin, and hit him in a pressure point on his back to paralyzing him for a few seconds, where Lee then grabbed him in a reverse bear hug, and started spin around as they fell down to the ground, and he cried out, Amit Renge, Front Lotus. As they hit the ground, they made a massive crater in the ground, after which Lee landed outside it, since he let go and had jumped away just before they hit the ground, and looked down at the fallen Jonin. As soon as he looked back up, he saw Falcon and Hawk coming towards him, since they had finished off the other Kyrianins. Incredible. He was able to do all that without even using chakra. It seems that Konoha does still have a few decent shinobis after all, thought Hawk. Very impressive, Rock Lee-san. It seems that the rumors of your strength and power in taijutsu were all true. I see why even the Raikage holds your skill in battle in high regard, spoke Falcon, clearly impressed. Thank you for your youthful comments, my friends. You honor me with your praise. It was noting. Your skill in battle and teamwork is truly inspirational as well, answered Lee. Falcon nodded and then spoke. We must hurry now or else we be stuck here. Agreed. I do not wish to be stuck in this unyouthful place any longer, said Lee, as the three of them started to run to the rendezvous point, with the rest of the rescue team at the same time. When Lee turned back to help Hawk and Falcon fight the Kyrianins that were pursuing them, the others kept on running, but unfortunately they did not get far too before 15 more Kyrianins were in front of them. Shit, these guys are like cockroaches. Whenever you kill a few of them, more come out woodwork and scurry around, swore Raven. Well then we just have to exterminate them all, then said an Anbu with a crow-shaped Anbu mask. Quickly one of the Kyrianins did a few hand seals and cried out Sutin. Hahanik, water style. Tearing torrent, and a massive torrent blast of water headed toward them. Quickly Crane stepped in front, did a few hand seals and cried out Sutin. Sujin Heki, water style. Water encampment wall, after which a massive amount of water surrounded around them, protecting them from the attack like a shield. As soon as Crane dropped the water shield, Crane and L both did a series of hand seals together, and finished at the exact same time, where Crane cried out Sutin. Daibakufu no Jutsu, water style. Great waterfall technique, while L cried out Futon. Atsugai, wind style. Pressure damage. The two attacks combined, where the powerful water attack strength and speed increased due to the powerful wind attack, combined with it, in which 4 of Kyrianins were hit and crushed by the powerful attack. Suddenly another Kyrianin fired a powerful Sutin. Surukin no Jutsu, water release. Water dragon bullet technique at them, but it was blocked by Crow, who stepped in front of it, and cried out Rejeki, lightning strike, in which a large bolt of lightning came from his hand and cut right through the water dragon. The Rejeki was also too fast for the Kyrianins to avoid and was hit in the chest, and a large hole could be seen in the man's chest, when he fell to the ground dead. To the group's left, 4 of the Kyrianins tried to attack them by charging them with their kunais, but Raven intercepted them and did a series of one-handed hand seals with each hand, and when finished both at the same time. Raven then cried out Kaiten. Amatai Fikasi, fire style. Massive fire stream, in which a massive stream of fire shot of Raven mask mouth and headed towards the Kyrianins, and added to the fact that he combined the attack with his wind affinity element, he was able to increase the strength and heat of the flames even more. Where it incinerated 2 of the men due to the extreme heat of the flames, the other 2 men, however, had been able to escape thanks to using Kawarimi no Jutsu, substitution jutsu, to replace themselves with water clones. As soon as the attack ended, the 2 Kyrianins appeared in the air above Raven, and were falling down ready to kill Raven, but as they fell down to kill Raven, Sparrow, who was still carrying the princess, threw a kunai at the 2 Kyrianins, where it passed right between them. Thinking that Sparrow missed, the Kyrianins ignored the kunai, but if they hadn't ignored it, they would have seen the kunai changed into Swallow. where he then quickly took out his sword and spun around and decapitated both the shinobis with a single slash from his sword without either of Kyrenians ever knowing what had happened. Man oh man, these guys' teamwork is flawless, they're in perfect sequence with one another. If I didn't know any better, I swear they could read each other's minds. Since not even Ino, Shikamaru and I teamwork is that flawless, nor is our dad's teamwork, thought Chachi as he watched them in awe. To the group right, 3 Kyrenians appeared and faced against a female storm member that wore a dove-shaped mask, and each Kyrenian did their own jutsu. Sutin. John Okuchi water style. Snake's mouth, cried the first Kyrenians. Sutin. Sushi no jutsu, water style. Water drowning technique, cried the second Kyrenians. Sutin. Hahanrik, water style. Destructive rapid torrents, cried the third Kyrenians. As the 3 water attacks charged at her, Dove quickly did 2 sets of one-handed seals together with incredible speed, and when finished shouted out Sutin. Ryaitu tsunami, water style. Freezing tidal wave. In which a massive tidal wave appeared in front of Dove and went right through the other advancing water attacks, where when it passed through the attacks where they were frozen solid and shattered into thousands of pieces, as were the Kyrenians who could not avoid the attack, and were hit by it and killed when their frozen bodies shattered. This was due to the wind element that Dove combined with the water attack, which allowed the water to freeze anything it hits. Unbelievable, their jutsu combination ability is incredible. Even Konoha could learn a thing or two from them, thought Kurenai as she watched the storm members combining their jutsus to make them more powerful. As Dove was dealing with the 3 Kyrenians, another Kyrenian came up behind Sakura and was about to stab her with his sword before she could even try and move out of the way, but just before the Kyrenian could stab her, a sword appeared sticking out of his chest. When the sword was pulled out and the man fell dead, and Sakura saw that her savior was a female Stormonbu who wore a thrush-shaped mask. I suggest that you watch your back more carefully, Haruno-sen said Robin, who was clearly female by the sound of her voice and shape of her body. Just after finishing speaking, the last 2 remaining Kyrenians appeared out of the dying smoke and charged at Sakura and Robin with their short katanas, but before they could get close enough, 2 separate voices shouted out. Raiden. Suzukiri, lightning style. Cutting sparrow. Where screaming birds-like sounds similar to Kakashi's Chidori were heard, and then they saw dozens of birds made out of lightning heading towards the Kyrenians. They tried to avoid the attacks, but the birds followed them and cut right through them, cutting them into pieces. When they turned to whom had saved them, they saw 2 storm members just to their right. One was wearing a phoenix-shaped mask, another, who was clearly female by the shape of her body, wore a swan-shaped mask. Thanks guys, I owe you one, said Robin to the members who had saved them, to which they just nodded. Alright everyone, let hurry, we're nearly there, and it almost time to go, shouted Crane as they started to run again. We're not long after they arrived at docking point 2, and saw the large metal gate at the docking point. So what do we do now? Asked Choji. We wait, answered L. But for what and for how long? Asked Sakura. You see in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now, said Raven looking at his watch, after which the metal gates exploded, and when the smoke cleared, a large metal craft appeared through the gate. The large craft was about the size of a medium-sized ship made entirely of metal armor and gold-plated rims. It had a fish-shape-like design and seemed to move through the water fairly quickly. It also had raised platform with a large hatch and hand railings on the top of it. It also had a propeller on its tail end which allowed it to move. It also had a glass window on its front and small portholes on its sides. Although they could not see in through the window or the portholes, it was likely that the people inside could see out. What the hell is that thing? Asked Sakura, which was what Kurenai and Choji were both thinking as well. At one of Kumo's latest creations it called a submarine, answered Crane. A sub what? Asked Choji confused. A submarine, a metal ship that can sail on water and underwater, said L. Impossible ships can't sail underwater, said Sakura. Well, this one does, as you will soon see, answered Phoenix. Just then the top catch of the submarine opened up, and a woman wearing tight red top and shorts, with matching socks and shoes, and wore a Kumo headband on her head with the symbol cloth being red instead of brown, appeared on top. Right on time guys, now get on quickly, half of Kiri Navy is behind us, and is about to surround this place, shouted the women. Right, alright everyone get on, order Crane, in which they quickly did. When they did, Sakura quickly shouted, what about Lee and the others? We can't leave them here. We can't wait for them, because if we do, the Kiri Navy will surround the prison and fire on us, said the women in red. There's no need to wait, they're here, said Dove as she pointed, which when the others looked they saw Lee, Hawk and Falcon heading for them, where they quickly jumped on. Perfect timing guy, we were about to leave, said the women in red. It was thanks to Lee-san help here that we were able to get here on time. Had he not come to help us when he did, we would not have gotten here in time, spoke Falcon, which caused Lee to smile, since he was glad that he could help them. Quickly the submarine reversed out of the docking point and turned facing out into the sea. As they moved, Swallow took out a small note with a seal. "I believe it time that we release our little surprise for the Kyrians, don't you agree, sir?" asked Swallow to Falcon, where he just nodded. "What's that?" asked Kurenai, to which Swallow replied, "Watch and will you see." After which he channeled some chakra into the note, and a few seconds later several massive explosions could be seen coming from the prison itself. They then saw the prison starting to collapse, creating a massive amount of smoke to rise, due to the explosions and collapsing building. "What did you do?" asked Kurenai, with shock clearly heard in her voice and seen on her face, as well as the princess and the other Konohans. "When Falcon and his team were releasing the princess, you and your team and the rebel prisoners, my team set large amounts of powerful exploding notes on the foundations of the prison, as well as some other key points in the building, so to destroy it and everything around it," answered Swallow. As Swallow gave his explanation to the princess and the Konohans, Falcon turned to his left, where he could just see from the distance the 5 rebel ships sailing away. This caused the man to smile behind his mask. Since he was glad the rebels were able to get out in time, he also hoped that they were able to get all their comrades out as well. It was after that they heard several small explosions, causing them to turn away from the hold and look forward to see a large fleet of Kiri warships nearing them and firing their volley guns to fire their exploding kunais at them, which were now flying towards them. Fortunately, they were just out of range of the volley guns and weren't hit. "Everyone get in now," ordered the woman in red, where everyone quickly went down the hatch and into the submarine, where once the entrance hatch was shut, the women in red ordered the ship to dive underwater, which it did, and the ship sailed right under the Kiri fleet and headed for their rendezvous point with the escort fleet. Inside the submarine, after a few minutes, when the submarine sank into underwater, the woman in red went over to the radio station that was next to the steering wheel of the ship, which in turn was right in front of the large glass window view screen. She then picked up the radio speaker and spoke. "Seagull, this is Swordfish, come in Seagull," said the woman in red. After a few seconds a voice replied. "This is Seagull, Swordfish, go ahead," answered the voice. "Good to hear you, Seagull, please report your condition," asked the woman in red. "All hatchlings have been recovered, a few ruffled feathers here or there, but all have been recovered with no losses," replied Seagull. "Glad to hear it, Seagull, have a safe journey back to your nest," replied the woman in red. "Will do, and please inform Wild Eagle that he has definitely impressed us and has earned himself quite a few friends," said Seagull. "Roger, Seagull, I'm sure he'd be happy to hear it over and out," answered the woman in red, and put down the speaker and turned to the rescue team and the others. "Good work, team, I can see that there was not too much trouble in accomplishing the mission," spoke the woman in red. "No, not really, everything nearly went according to plan, although we did not expect as much resistance when escaping as we did. But that was mainly due to the fact that they had a sensor-type shinobi with them, so they were able to find use quicker than we, though in the smoke. But it was still noting that we couldn't handle," answered Falcon, to which the women in red nodded and turned to the princess. "Princess Sachi, my name is Sun Li, captain of this ship, the Swordfish, and commander of Kumo submarine fleet and underwater shinobi fighting unit Aqua. I hope you are well and unhurt," asked Sun Li with a slight bow. "I am, thank you, and I also like to thank you all for saving the others, and myself I am extremely grateful to you all," said the princess, with a slight bow to them. It was noting princess, "but you are welcome none the same. Also, I'm afraid that the ship does not have much room or privacy, since there is not as much room in here as there is on a normal ship, since this submarine can only carry at max 30 people, which is what we are carrying now. If you follow one of my crewmen, he will lead you to my private cabin, so that you may rest, since I'm sure you must be tired. I will also have some food sent to you, since you must be hungry as well," said Sun Li. "That is alright, Commander Sun Li, I understand perfectly, and I do not mind at all. You are already very kind to offer your room to me," said the princess with another slight bow, and then turned to follow the crewman that would lead her to the commander cabin. When the princess went down the steps to the lower level, Kurenai came forward and started to speak to Sun Li. "Commander Sun Li, my name is Yuhi Saratobi Kurenai, and on behalf of my team and myself, I would like to thank you and the Storm members for saving us," said Kurenai with a slight bow, which was followed by Lee, Sakura and Choji. "You're welcome, Kurenai-san," replied Sun Li, neutrally, unlike the friendly one she had used when speaking to the princess. Kurenai decided to ignore the sudden change of attitude, and decided to ask what she had been wondering ever since she found out it was Kumo shinobis that had saved her and her team along with the princess. "Excuse me, Commander Sun Li, but I have been wondering, why is it that you and your teams were sent to rescue us along with the princess? Since clearly the reason why you were sent to rescue the princess was because of the Heavenly Alliance being allied to Tsuki no Kuni, Land of Moon, and Jitsukakure, village hidden under the moon, and it is Tsuki no Kuni prince that is marrying the princess. But what I can't understand is, why did you save us, since our village is not allied or a member of the Heavenly Alliance?" asked Karini. The reason is quite simple really, you were saved on an act of mercy by Raikage, replied Sun Li. What? Shouted Choji. Yes, since Raikage didn't think that Konoha would use its remaining resources on attacking Kiri's strongest prison, just to save 4 of it, shinobis even ones as strong and well-known as all of you. Also, since we were destroying the prison and helping the other prisoners escape, it was decided to save you, since Raikage does not like to see lives needlessly lost, no matter who they are, said Sun Li. The Konoha team were simply stunned since they were saved by a mere act of mercy by the Raikage. Now if you please, one of my crewmen will lead you down to the mess room to get something to eat, and then lead you to your bunk beds. Since as I said there is not much room or privacy in this submarine, so you may feel a bit trapped, said Commander Sun Li, after which she then turned to face the main view window of the submarine. After which the Konohans followed a crewman to the lower deck. One day late. A day after the rescue from the hull, the Swordfish was about an hour or more away from their rendezvous point, where they would meet their escort fleet. Currently lying on their bunk beds with the Konoha team, they had to stay in their bunk beds, since there was not much they could do after their collars had been removed by the storm members who were skilled enough in Fukinjutsu to free them of their collars. They were even given some spare Anbu outfits, minus the masks and swords, that the storm ninjas had to wear and change out of their prison outfits. At first they were a bit uncomfortable with being underwater, but they soon got used to it. They would even sometimes look out the small portholes to look at the fish go by them. They were not allowed to explore the submarine much due to the Kumo crewmen telling them so, which was not surprising, since they were not allies to Kumo or the Heavenly Alliance, nor were they members of it. The only time they were really allowed to move around a bit was when the submarine surfaced for air. Despite this fact, they did know a small bit about the submarine from what 1 or 2 of the crewmen were willing to tell them. From what they were told, the submarine had 3 levels. The top was the bridge of the submarine, was where the submarine was controlled. They were allowed up to the bridge, but whenever they went they were accompanied by 1 or 2 members of Storm. The second level was where the captain cabin and the bunk beds were, and where the small mess room and kitchen was, which was big enough for 10 people to eat in. The third level was where the engine room was, as was the diving room where Kumo Aquanins could go out into the water. Also there was the torpedo room where the submarine could fire missile-like weapons filled with exploding powder that would explode when fired and made contact with its target. The Konoha team knew that with ships like these, Kumo could easily take control of the elemental oceans. It was as the Konoha team were lying on their bunk bed thinking about different things that they then felt an explosion that rocked the submarine and caused Sakura and Choji to fall out of their beds. What the hell was that? Asked Choji as he picked himself up. I don't know, but we better get up onto the bridge to find out, said Kurenai, as he got out her bunk bed and went up the spiral stair followed by Lee, Choji and Sakura. When they reached the bridge they saw the princess with Robin and Crane on either side of her. They also saw several crewmen pulling several different handles and switches helping to control the ship, while the man at the steering wheel was trying to control the submarine, and Sun Li was giving out orders to the other crewmen. Commander Sun Li, what going on? Asked Kurenai. Sun Li turned to face Kurenai and said, we're under attack, that what going? But how? Asked Li. We're being attacked by Kiri's shark unit. Kiri must have had ships out on the open sea, and they must have informed them of the attack, and sent out their ships to search for us, by sending out their shark teams to search underwater. It also seems that some of those teams found us and are attacking us with their portable volley guns loaded with exploding kunai, which was the blasts that you felt, answered Sun Li. I'm afraid we have more trouble than just the shark unit, commander, said a crewman who was looking up the periscope of the submarine. What is it? Asked Sun Li harshly. A squad of 10 Kiri warships is heading right for us. The shark teams that found us must have radioed them and reported our position to them, said the crewman. Suddenly there was another explosion that made everyone fall to their left. Shit, and we're so close to the rendezvous point, swore Sun Li. She then turned to the radio man. Crewmen, try and radio to the escort fleet, inform them of our situation, and that we need help, orders Sun Li. I trying, ma'am, but that last blast damaged the radio, and I don't know if they getting it, answered the radio man. Just keep trying, damn it, said Sun Li, and she then turned to Falcon, who had also arrived around the same time as Kurenai and her team. Falcon, get 2 of your teams out there and deal with those bastards out there, said Sun Li. We're just Falcon nodded and went down to get his 2 teams ready, while leaving the third in the submarine. Just when Falcon went down, 2 Carrions appeared in front on the view screen of the submarine, and both holding a portable volley gun, and fired them at the view screen. Put up the iris up now, shouted Sun Li. Right before the kunais could hit the view screen, a metal shield quickly covered the view screen and protected it from the blast. Even though the shock of the blast rippled through the submarine and caused several people to nearly fall off their feet. That was too close, said Choji, wiping the sweat from his forehead. Suddenly the crewman controlling the steering wheel shouted out. Commander, the controls of the ship are jammed, we're not moving, and the steering is going too, we're starting to sink, said the crewman. Look out there at a net, they're dropping a net down on us, said Sakura, looking out a small porthole, and seeing a net surround them. Suddenly several more explosions could be heard and felt around them. Shit, we're all dead, said a crewman, panicky. Calm down all of you, they're way out. The shark nins know that their exploding kunai aren't doing enough damage, so they should stop trying too soon. Once they do, the shark nins will launch and direct attack, said Sun Li. And just as Sun Li stated, the explosions stopped, and minute later an even bigger explosions were felt through the submarine that caused everyone to fall at their feet. Shit, they must be sticking exploding notes to the hull of the ship to make blasts like that, said Crane next to the princess. Commander, I count 12 enemy shark nins out there surrounding us, shouted Robin, who was looking out the small porthole. Commander, the diving room is starting to flood from damage to the lower port side of the submarine. We've taken severe damage. We can't take much more of this, said a crewman who was coming up from the lower level of the submarine. Ha! Are we ever lucky, said Sun Li, who was now smiling. Everyone on the bridge of the submarine started to look at her as if she had lost her mind. What the hell do you mean by lucky, asked Choji, almost panic-like. Sun Li just continued to smile and said, now the enemies that we couldn't find are now around us, and we know where they are and how many there are. Also, the enemy has even helped us out a bit by speeding up the flooding of the diving room, so that Falcon and his teams can get out quicker now and deal with them. Falcon and his team outside. As soon as Falcon and the other Storm on Nins were out of the swordfish, they immediately went to engage the shark teams. Do they seriously think that they can match us in underwater battle? If they do, then they're fools. No one can match a shark member in underwater combat, thought the captain of the shark teams. Hawk, you and Raven try and cut loose the swordfish from the net and free the propellers and the control from the net, while we deal with the shark teams, ordered Falcon through the radio speaker on his breathing mask. Roger, both replied. With Hawk and Raven gone to deal with the net on the swordfish, the others engaged the shark members. Phoenix clashed swords one shark member, in which both were trying to overpower the other as their swords struggled for dominance. But unfortunately for the shark nin, Phoenix was only distracting the shark nin, so that Owl could come behind the shark member and stick her sword right through the unsuspecting shark member. As Phoenix was dealing the shark nin with Owl, 5 shark nins surrounded Falcon. Let's kill him, said one of the shark nins. As the shark nins went to attack Falcon on all sides, Falcon started to spin around like a spinning top, in which he then cried out Uzumaki Tnrai Divine Whirlpool, in which a whirlpool appeared around Falcon and sucked in the shark nins, before they could even try and swim away, and were sucked down into the bottom of the sea. As soon as they were gone, Falcon stopped spinning and quickly gained his bearings, where he then started to speak on the radio that was connected to his breathing mask. Falcon calling Hawk, come in. Hawk called Falcon on the radio. Hawker, go ahead, answered Hawk. ETA on freeing the sub from the net over there? Asked Falcon. Progress is indefinite since the net is made of strong charcoal-resisting steel, and we are unable to cut through it, replied Hawk. Shit, thought Falcon. Roger, Hawk, you and Raven continue trying to free the sub while we finish off the shark's nins over and out, said Falcon. Roger, Falcon will go and out, spoke Hawk. As Falcon spoke to Hawk on the radio, the storm nins continued to fight the remaining half of the shark nins. During the fight, one of the shark nins used the Sutin Bishakism, water style. 5 feeding sharks, to launch 5 water sharks on the storm nins, in which the water sharks cut and wounded Owl and Crow in their sides and arms as they tried to dodge them. Falcon then quickly ordered them to head back to the swordfish, which they did as Falcon, Phoenix and Dove destroyed the water sharks with their katanas, and then engaged the 6 remaining shark nins. Dove battle. Dove quickly dodged several kunais fired by the shark nins. She then quickly goes up to them and tries to slash them with her katana, but they dodge the attack and fired her, where she was unable to full dodge one of the kunais and cut her arm lightly. She then quickly doses a few hand seals and cries out, Sutin Matsurappa, water style. Violent bubble wave, in which the surrounding space around them became covered in bubbles, blocking the shark nins' line of sight, where they then moved out of the bubbled area. This of course was what Dove had wanted, and when the 2 shark nins moved out of the bubble-filled area, Dove quickly attacked them, taking them both by surprise, and killing one of the 2 shark nins by slicing his throat, which she nearly decapitated him by doing so. Unfortunately, the other shark nin was able to get away in time. After which, when Dove killed his partner, he tried to kill her by firing another kunai at her when her back was turned. Lucky she was able to dodge it by the wrenches cutting a bit of her uniform. Dove then quickly charged the shark nin with her katana again. As she did, she dodged another kunai fired her way by the shark nin. When she got to the shark nin and slashed at him, he was just able to move out of her charging attack. But as he moved away, Dove quickly did a few one-handed hand seals and cried out, Sutin Takake, water style. octopus whip, in which a water whip sprung from around her arm as she went by him and wrapped around the sharknin waist, in which when she pulled she was able to pull herself towards the sharknin, and combined with her momentum from her previous charge, she was able to increase her speed, so that the sharknin could not dodge or move out of the way in time, and was pierced in the heart by her katana. Phoenix battle. Phoenix had his hands full with fighting the two sharknins that he was battling with, where when he fought against a sharknin with his own katana against Phoenix, the other would come up and try and hit him with his portable volley gun. Also, if he tried to attack the sharknin with the portable volley gun, then the sharknin with the katana would intercept him, in which the same thing would happen all over again. As he dodged another kunai sent his way, the sharknin with the katana started to do a few hand seals, and cried out, Suten, Mujensum, water style, infinite shark. Where a massive amount of sharks started to head towards him, knowing that he couldn't defeat so many water sharks with just his katana. Phoenix quickly began his own set of hand seals, and after finishing them he cried out, Ranton, Ryuzeskasu, storm style, laser circus, in which several massive laser-like beams came from his hands and hitting several different water sharks and destroyed them. The beams then began to alter their direction, and started to destroy the other water sharks, and within seconds all the water sharks were destroyed. But as soon as he finished his jutsu, Phoenix was hit in the shoulder blade with a kunai by the sharknin with volley gun, and when he realized what had happened, he saw the other sharknin charging forward with his katana. Within a few seconds the sharknin had stabbed Phoenix in his stomach with his katana, but before the sharknin could fully enjoy his victory, he quickly realized that the body that he had stabbed was the body of one of his dead comrades, that Phoenix had been able to replace himself with the Kawarimi no Jutsu, substitution jutsu. The sharknin also then noticed several exploding tags on the dead sharknin body. Realizing this, the sharknin tried to get away but was caught in the explosion when the tags on the dead body exploded. After a few seconds after the explosions, the sharknin came out of the bubble screen that covered the blast area, and even though he had survived the blast, he was still badly injured, and as they tried to swim away, he then saw Phoenix heading towards him with shocking speed. Unable to move away quickly enough due to the injuries he had suffered from the blast, all he could do was watch as Phoenix charged towards him and stab him in the head with his katana. As soon as a Phoenix had killed the first sharknin, the other fired several kunais at him, where Phoenix had to dodge and deflect them. After which he then charged at the sharknin, but the sharknin made sure to keep his distance from him. Knowing that he couldn't get close enough to the sharknin, Phoenix then started to do a few hand seals. Thinking that Phoenix was going to fire a jutsu at him, the sharknin got ready to dodge the attack. But what the sharknin did not expect was for Phoenix to turn his back to him and then cry out, Suten, Hahanrik, water style, ripping torrent, creating a massive torrent that shoot Phoenix toward the sharknin with incredible speed. It was then that the sharknin realized that Phoenix was not firing the jutsu at him, but was using it to propel himself towards him with amazing speed. After realizing this, the sharknin tried to move out of Phoenix's path, but knew that he was coming in too fast for him to move away in time. In which Phoenix then sped towards him and severed the sharknin head from his body. Falcon battle. As his comrades were dealing with the other sharknins, Falcon was busy fighting the captain of the shark teams and the last remaining member. How is this possible? We are Shark, the best underwater shinobi fighting unit in the world, and yet we being slaughtered by these bastards. It doesn't make any sense, thought the shark captain furiously, who had seen his remaining men being killed by Dove and Phoenix. Damn it, you Kumo bastards, if you think you're going to win this fight you're dead wrong, shouted the shark captain through his breathing radio speaker mask. The shark captain then charged forward, followed quickly by the one remaining sharknin. Falcon then engaged them both in a sword fight. Unfortunately, due to the fact they were fighting underwater, Falcon could not fight to his full extent in sword fighting, since the water slowed down and decreased his attacking strikes and slashes of his sword. As they fought, Falcon made a slashing strike for the shark captain head, but the shark captain was able to duck the slash in time to keep from his head from being cut off. The other sharknin then made his own attack against Falcon by trying to stab him in the chest with his sword, but fortunately Falcon was able to use a Kawarimi no Jutsu and replace himself with a water clone. In which Falcon then made his own counterattack against the sharknin by appearing behind the sharknin and slashing diagonally at the sharknin back. But before he could, the shark captain intercepted and blocked the attack with his katana and forced Falcon back. After his failed attack, Falcon then began to spin his sword around in front of him, in which it created a vortex, and shot it towards the two sharknins. As it did, Falcon cried out Kibaoshi, spinning vortex. The two sharknins were able to avoid the attack, but were separated by the attack, which was what Falcon had wanted, where he then raced towards the sharknin with great speed. When the shark nin saw Falcon heading towards him, he quickly raised his sword up quickly to block Falcon one-handed sword attack, which it did. But unfortunately this was just a diversionary attack, and Falcon then brought up his other hand, and a three-pronged wrist-bladed ninja claw sprung out of his ninja gauntlet, in which Falcon then swung the wrist blade at the unprotected side of the shark nin head, and killed him, before he could do anything to avoid or block the attack. Just after Falcon had killed the shark nin, the shark captain came charging behind him shouting, "Kumo bastard, I kill you all for what you done." Where he then swung his katana in a downward slash, which Falcon was just barely able to block the attack by holding up his wrist blade and katana above his head in a cross-X fashion and push him back. But as soon as he pushed the shark captain back, the shark captain began to do some hand seals, and the shouted out Suiton, Kyoha Shikupran, water style. Piranha school feeding frenzy, in which dozens of small water piranhas appeared and started to race towards Falcon, who tried to fight them off with his katana, and although he was able to destroy 3 or 4 of them, several others were able to wound him by biting his arm, sides, and legs, as well as cutting them. Realizing that he could not destroy all the water piranhas with just his sword, Falcon then put his sword back in his sheath on his back, began to spin around again like he did before, when he defeated the 5 shark nins that had surrounded him. But instead of spinning clockwise like he did earlier, he was now spinning counterclockwise. He shouted out Uzumaki Tenrai, in which he created another giant whirlpool around him like before, but instead of sucking things in and around it, it forced things outwards, and creating small water blades at the same time to push the shark captain away, and destroyed the water piranhas at the same time. Soon enough the attack ended and Falcon stopped spinning, but just as soon as Falcon regained his bearings, he saw the shark captain charging directly in front of him, crying out, Falcon then just managed to bring up both his arms up to block the sword downward slash, and caught the sword with the metal spikes on his ninja gauntlets, after which with a power pull, he separated his arms and broke the katana at the same moment. Not losing the momentum of what he did, Falcon then quickly brought up his arm with the wrist blades on it, and did a powerful uppercut on the shark captain, who was still slightly stunted with his sword being broken. Where when Falcon did his uppercut, the blades went right through the shark captain bottom chin, and up to his head, where the tip of the middle blade could be seen at the top of the now dead shark captain. When Falcon removed his wrist blades from the dead shark captain, Phoenix and Dove swam over to him. "Commander, are you okay?" asked Dove. "Yes, I'm fine, thank you, just a few scratches, nothing to worry about. How about you two?" replied Falcon. "We're both okay, sir, no serious injuries," answered Phoenix. "But now with the shark nins gone, we can deal with the net that has the swordfish," said Falcon, in which he and the others swam to the submarine, where Hawk and Raven were still trying to free it from the net. "Hawk, any luck with the net?" asked Falcon. "No sir, the net is too strong with ordinary blades, and it resistant to our chakra, there's just no way to cut it," said Hawk. "This is troubling to say the least. If we do not free the swordfish soon, it will sink further down, and eventually be crushed due to the pressure," spoke Falcon. "Swordfish, this is Falcon over," spoke Falcon on his radio, in which Sun Li responded. "Falcon, this is Swordfish, go ahead, over. All sharks have been eliminated, but we are unable to free the ship. The net is resistant to our chakra, and is too strong for our blades to cut over," spoke Falcon. After Falcon had finished reporting the situation to Sun Li, the net around the ship started to get tighter, and the swordfish stopped sinking and was beginning to rise. "What going on?" asked Raven. "The Kiri warships above are pulling up the sub," answered Hawk. "But why?" asked Dove. "They must still want the princess, not to mention they properly want to capture the swordfish, so to examine it and try and create their own fleet of submarines," said Phoenix. "Falcon, come in, Falcon, this is Swordfish, what is going on, why are we rising?" spoke Sun Li through the radio. "Swordfish, this is Falcon, it seems that the Kiri warships above are pulling up the swordfish. I believe that they want to recapture the princess, and capture the swordfish, along with us," answered Falcon. "Roger, Falcon, you and the rest of your teams come back in, over," replied Sun Li. "Roger, Swordfish, over and out," replied Falcon, after which he and the others started to swim back to the swordfish emergency air hatch, so to enter back into the submarine, since the flood room was damaged. "The bridge of the swordfish. Damn it," swore Sun Li when she had finished speaking to Falcon on the radio, after which she then turned to the radio man and asked, "Have you been able to make contact with the escort fleet?" "No ma'am, all I getting is static, so even if they got our message we can't tell since we're unable to receive any reply from them," answered the radio man. "Commander, what are we going to do? If we don't do something now, we're all going to be captured or killed," spoke the crewman at the steering wheel. "For a minute or two," Commander Sun Li said, noting, and just continued to look out the main window screen. "Commander," spoke the crewman again, but before he could finish, Sun Li interrupted him and asked her own question. "Saizo, are our ballast tanks still working?" asked Sun Li to the crewman at the steering wheel, whose name was Saizo. "Eh? Yes they are, but why?" said the confused Saizo. Because we're going to take the fight to them, answered Sun Li. Huh? Said Saizo. In our current condition we will be all captured or killed, and the only chance we have of getting out of here is to take these guys out, and since we can't maneuver underwater to fire at them with the net on us, the only chance we have is to raise the ship to the surface and take them out quickly before they have a chance to fire back at us, answered Sun Li. But even if we do rise the ship they will fire on us within a minute. We have no chance against them, spoke Saizo. Not if we destroy one of the ships as we rise up at the same time. Huh? Said Saizo again. It's simple. As we near the surface we will eventually go right underneath the Kiri ship that is pulling us up, and at that moment we blow the ballast tanks of full power which will launch us up to the surface, and with the momentum we would smash right through the ship, and which would create confusion with the other ships, and give us an opportunity to take them out before they can organize themselves. But ma'am, if we do that it could destroy us along with the ship when we rise up, said Saizo. I know, but our best bet. Besides, this ship is tough. I know that she can take it, answered Sun Li, at a slight smile on her face as she said the last part and continued. Now I know these is a long shot at best people, but it's the best I got, and if anyone here has any better ideas I'd be more than happy to hear it, asked Sun Li, where she was met with only silence, since no one had a better ideas. Now once Falcon and the others are back in, have everyone get ready for the attack, and have them be ready for harsh surfacing, so they better hold on to something tight. Yes ma'am, answered Saizo. Commander Sun Li, are you certain this is the best course of action to take, asked Kurenai as she stepped forward. Sun Li then turned around to her and said, as I said, it is our best chance, otherwise we will be all captured or killed, and I for one have no intention of being their prisoner, or handing over this ship to Kiri. Besides, if we going down, then we might as well go down fighting, spoke Sun Li. But what about the princess? We can't put her life in danger like this. Your duty was to bring her back safely, and said Kurenai, but before she could finish Princess Sachi interrupted her. Do not worry about me, Kurenai-sen, I agree with Commander Sun Li. Also, I have no intention of being a prisoner for Kiri again. Very well, princess, if that is your wish, sighed Kurenai, knowing she could not win, and then turned back to Sun Li and spoke again. If we have your permission, Commander Sun Li, my team and I would like to help if possible, offered Kurenai. Very well, you and your team can get some weapons from the spares that Falcon and his teams have, since we may have to board one or two of the ships, so we need all the help we can get, answered Sun Li, which Kurenai nodded, and went down to the lower level with the rest of her team to get some weapons. Within a minute or two the swordfish was directly underneath the Kiri ship that was pulling them up with the net. Fire the ballast tanks, ordered Sun Li. After which the submarine was launched straight up and crashed right through the ship and splitting it in two, killing many Kiri crewmen and shinobis that were on board and throwing others into the water. After the submarine was on the surface, the Kiri fleet was in complete chaos, with many ships being overflown with water or pieces from the destroyed ship scattering all over them, and with the way the submarine had suddenly appeared when the submarine crashed through the ship. Also, when that had happened, the net was ripped off it, although part of the net was still tangled up with the propeller of the submarine. As soon as the submarine was on the surface, Sun Li quickly ordered the first two torpedoes fired from their launchers at the nearest Kiri warship, in which after the torpedoes were fired, they quickly hit their target and destroyed it. After that, Sun Li gave the order again with the remaining two torpedoes, and destroyed another Kiri warship. After the torpedoes were all fired, Sun Li quickly ordered for the volley gun on the top of the submarine to be released and fired. In which it was, and the volley gun fired its remaining exploding kunais on the remaining Kiri warships, where two more of the Kiri warships were destroyed, while another two were damaged. As soon as all the kunais had been fired from the volley gun, Sun Li quickly gave orders for most of the crew, the Konoha team and all but two of the storm ninjas, to go out with her onto the conning tower, 3, and board the enemy ships. But before any of them even go up the ladder to the conning tower, they heard a loud shot, after which they were then hit, and a harpoon point was sticking through the metal hull of the bridge of the submarine. A few seconds later it was followed by several more loud shots, and 3 more harpoons hit the submarine, and were sticking through the hull of it. Shit, they have harpoon guns on their ships, damn it, I should have known, they would curse Sun Li. This was because many warships of late had harpoon launchers on their decks, so that they could fire harpoon bolts at enemy ships' decks, and have the bolts tied by a rope to their ships, so that they could pull the enemy ship closer to them, and board the ship. A few seconds later they heard a voice shouting to them. Attention Kumo ship, my name is Admiral Fubiku, commander of Kiri 15th Battle Group. You are surrounded on all sides, and your ship is unable to move. Surrender now, or you will be destroyed. You have 30 seconds or we destroy the ship, shouted the Admiral. Damn it, we're finished. I underestimated their recovery time from our surprise attack, cursed Sun Li. But ma'am, we can still fight. We can go out and fight them hand to hand, said one of the younger crewmen. That would be pointless. I'm afraid they would most likely have their volley guns at the entrance, and there isn't enough time for us to sneak out of the submarine through the emergency underwater hatch to escape. We have no choice but to surrender, spoke Sun Li, where she then turned to the princess and the Konoha and spoke again. I'm apologize to you all. It seems that we rescued you all only to be captured again. There's no need to apologize, Commander Sun Li. You did your best, thank you all for it, less trying to save us. I'm only sorry that it ended like this, answered the princess. As I, my princess, replied Sun Li, after which she then turned to Saizo and said, as we each go up to conning tower, make sure to had exploding notes all over the swordfish, and have them ready to explode as soon as the first carrying goes down into it. I don't want Carry to have a model to make their own fleet of submarines. Yes ma'am, replied Saizo. Admiral Fubiku, this is the captain of the ship. We will surrender and are coming up, shouted Sun Li to the admiral, as she opened the entrance hatch to the submarine and came out. A few minutes everyone on the submarine was out on top of the submarine with their hands in the air as a sign of surrender. Wise decision, Captain. Now have the princess step forward, so that we can see her, ordered the admiral, which the princess did. Very good, now we will send a small boat to you, and the princess will get on it and bring her to us. Once that is done, my men will then come to you and board your ship, and you will all be held as prisoners of war, spoke the admiral. But once he finished, he then turned to his second in command, and spoke quietly to him. Once the princess is away, have our men ready to fire the volley guns on my orders at the crew of the ship. Once they are all dead, we will board the ship and take it as our prize to the Mizukage. But sir, why don't we take them prisoner? I sure we could get valuable information from the Konoha and the captain of the ship, and those Anbu ninjas are sure to have very useful information about Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance that we could use, whispered the second in command to the admiral. No, the Mizukage orders were to eliminate the Konoha and the crew of the ship for destroying the hold. Not to mention we lost all 3 of our shark squads, and half our force because of them, so we're going to eliminate them before they cause us any more trouble. But we will take some of the bodies of those Anbus, since any ninja group that can defeat our shark units in an underwater battle is a major threat to us, answered the admiral. Very well sir, answered the second in command. After a few minutes, a small boat with 2 carrying and 2 carry crewmen came up to the swordfish and brought the princess on board and moved away from the submarine. Once it was a few feet away from the ship, the admiral gave out the order to prepare to fire at the crew of the swordfish, in which all the volley guns on the ships, and the portable ones carried by the carrying on board, were aimed at the swordfish crew. I knew it, thought Sun Li angrily. No, you can't do this, we surrendered. Under the articles of war, all surrendering enemies are to be held prisoner and given full quarter, screamed Princess Sachi, as she struggled with the 2 carrying that were holding her. That might be true from where you come from, princess, but that is not how we do things in Kiri or in other shinobi nations, since we only take prisoners who will be of use to us like yourself, while others like the crew of that ship who are of no real use to us are killed, sneered the admiral, and lifted up his hand to give the sign to fire and shouted. But before he could finish giving the order, one of the volley guns on one of the ships exploded. Insert Gundam 00 counterattack theme music. Next, the other volley guns on the other ships exploded, and exploding kunai and senbon needles fell down on the ships and around them, causing more explosions. What the hell going on, shouted the admiral. Sir, look, pointed the second in command in the sky, in which when he did he saw over 30 sky hawk ninjas flying in the air, dropping exploding kunais and senbon needles down on them, causing small explosions on the ships and around them. Suddenly the admiral and his second in command had to drop down onto the deck of the ship to avoid being hit by a low-flying sky hawk ninja that flew just over them, and who then used a lighting jutsu to destroy a lower mast of one of the ships. Don't just stand there, you fools, fire at them, yelled the admiral to the carrying who carried the portable volley guns. The carrying quickly began to fire their portal volley guns in the air at the Sky Hawk ninjas, but none of them were hit, as the Sky Hawk ninjas were trained to dodge and avoid enemy fire from the ground, in which they either skillfully dodged them, or they flew high enough so that the kunais would not reach them. As this was happening, the crew of the swordfish were cheering wildly at being saved. Who are they? Asked Sakurai, who was then answered by a crewman. They are Kumo Sky Hawk ninjas. They are specially trained ninjas that are trained to use special gliders that allow them to fly and fight from the air, answered the crewman as he continued to cheer, as the Konoha team was shocked to hear of Kumo having yet another secret elite force. What are you all standing and cheering here like idiots? Get back down into the swordfish before the Kyrians decide to fire at us, ordered Sun Li, in which the crew quickly began to get back down onto the sub. Also, as Sun Li was giving orders to her crew to get back down into the swordfish, Falcon suddenly appeared behind the 2 Kyrians that were holding the princess. Before either of them even knew what happened, he quickly smashed their heads together, knocking them out, and then threw them into the water. After which, before the two carry crewmen that were rowing the boat could even do anything, Falcon and the princess disappeared with a quick Shunshin no Jutsu, and appeared back on top of the submarine where they entered back into it. Thus, as soon as everyone got back into the swordfish, several bangs and loud whistling sounds were heard going through the air, after which several more massive explosions went off around the Kiri ships. "What the hell was that?" shouted the admiral. Sir Look, said the second in command, and pointing into the near distance, in which when the admiral turned and looked he saw something that made him go ghost white, for he couldn't believe what he was seeing. 3 massive warships, each the size of a large castle, which was by the look of them, were at least 240 yards long, and had over a dozen cannons on its front, which was where the blasts were coming from, 4, not to mention well as more cannons on both sides of the warships. He could also see more of those flying ninjas launching from behind the front part of the ship. Also around the 3 massive warships were over 20 normal Kumo warships. Suddenly several more blasts came from the castle-sized warships, and within a few seconds the cannonballs that were fired flew through the air and hit one of the Kiri warships and caused it to explode, and the remains of it quickly began to sink or scatter to the other Kiri warships. "Admiral Fubiku, we must retreat now before we're all destroyed," said his second in command. "Are you mad? I will not let these Kumo bastards make me run away. I would rather die here and now than live with the sham," spoke the admiral. But before he could finish, he was struck by a stray kunai from one of his own men, and was killed instantly. With the admiral dead, his second in command quickly took command and ordered all the remaining Kiri warships to retreat, in which the Kumo force decided to not pursue them. Then Gundam 00 counterattack theme music. Several minutes later, inside the swordfish. With the Kiri ships gone, many of the crewmen collapsed on the floor of the bridge from relief, realizing at how close they came to being killed, while others started to shout and cry with joy again that they were saved, some even saying that they always knew they'd make it. Even some of the storm ninjas showed signs of relief by sighing, or by the way their bodies seemed more relaxed, since no one could see their faces, since they still had their masks on them. Even the commander Sun Li showed a bit of relief when she lowered her shoulders and sat down at the nearby seat. Even as everyone in the submarine was now letting down their guard, since they knew they were safe now with the escort fleet here. There were some people that did not join the others in the celebrations. Those people were the Konoha team and Princess Sachi, who were now looking through the main view screen at the oncoming castle-sized warships with looks of awe or disbelief, since as the warships came closer their true size came into scope, and the Konoha team could not believe what they were seeing. Or even that ships this size actually existed. As the ships got closer, they noticed that the lead ship differed from the others, since Bowsprit 5 was in the shape of a large golden dragon head that looked like to be roaring at them, which most likely was the point, so to scare the enemy. "Impressive, aren't they?" spoke Sun Li, who came over to them. "What kind of ships are they?" asked Kurenai. "They are called fortress ships due to their massive size. They are the backbone of Kumo and Kaminari no Kuni naval forces, as well as the naval forces of the Heavenly Alliance, since we have several of them in various different fleets and battle groups," answered Sun Li. "You have more of those things?" spoke a shocked Sakura, which Sun Li just nodded in reply. "How many?" asked Choji. "Enough to make Kirigakure and Mizu no Kuni rethink about their belief that they are the major naval military power in Elemental Continent," replied Sun Li, which made the Konoha team and Princess Sachi wonder just how powerful was Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance, especially since they can keep things like these fortress ships, the submarines and flying ninjas unites a secret from the rest elemental nations without anyone finding out. Soon enough, the lead warship with the bowsprit shape of a large dragon head got closer to the swordfish, where its bow 6 began to open up like a double door, much to the surprise of the Konoha team and the princess. When the doors opened up, they could see inside a small dock inside the ships large enough to hold a submarine. Quickly enough, the fortress ship swallowed up the swordfish, and after the swordfish was inside the fortress ship, the doors closed. Several minutes later, inside the fortress ships. Once the swordfish was inside the fortress ship, both the crew and the ninja teams got out quickly enough along with the princess. Both the princess and the Konoha team were still in shock at how big the warship was, but they quickly got over their awe when they saw something else which was equally surprising. For on the dock were several different people waiting for the crew of the swordfish. Normally this would not surprise them, but the fact that surprised them was that one of the people waiting on the dock from there was the Rokudai Raikage, Aka, the famed Raiden no Kami, god of thunder and lightning, the man who destroyed an entire armada of 50 warships, which carried an army of 10,000 men, with a single jutsu. As he came closer to the group, everyone there could practically feel an aura of dominant authoritative power, coming from the Raikage, which made them all submissive to his presence. He had also a powerful essence about him, which made everyone around him feel a combination of fear and respect for him. As he came closer, the Konoha team could not help but shiver slightly at the power that they felt emanating from the Raikage, which told them that he was not a man to be trifled with. The Raikage wore official Kage uniform for the Raikage, and his hat was yellow with the kanji for lightning on it. Also, the only thing that was unofficial about his clothing was that he wore a mask identical to Kakashi mask, where it covered most of his face, so that they could only see his eyes, which were blue. As the Raikage walked towards their group, the Konoha team looked at the 4 people behind him, 3 of which were women, while the 4th was a tall dark-skinned man with a muscular build, as well as white hair and beard. On his right shoulder, he had a tattoo that said iron, and on his left cheek a tattoo of a bull's horn. He wore oval-shaped sunglasses and a white-colored forehead protector that had the Kumo symbol on it. He also wore a white-colored one-strap over one-shoulder flak jacket of a Kumagakure Jonin, with a red rope tied around his waist, white handbands, and a white scarf around his neck. He also carried 7 swords on his back. One of the women next to the Raikage was a tall long blonde-haired woman who had her hair tied up in a ponytail, and wore her headband around her head. She had cat-shaped-like eyes and wore a standard outfit of an Anbu ninja. The next woman was a medium-height and slim-built woman with bright green hair and pink eyes. She wore a high white shirt and armlets and a fishnet waistband. She also wore her Takagakure forehead protector on her right arm and her Kumagakure on her left. She also carried a cylindrical object on her back. The final woman was a tall, slightly shorter than the blonde woman, black-haired woman who had her hair in a bun, and wore her Kumo headband around her head. She wore a dark blue sleeveless vest that reached down to her lower rear, with a red sash tying it around her waist like a belt, and red shorts under the blue vest. She also had a red shoulder-less undershirt underneath the blue vest, and carried a short katana on her lower back. When the Raikage reached them, he immediately went to Princess Sachi, where he bowed slightly to her, which she returned, and he then began to speak to her. Princess Sachi, it's a pleasure to finally meet you in person, and to welcome you on board to the flagship of Kumo fleet, the Zenyo Riken. You've no idea of how happy it makes me to see that my people were able to rescue you without any harm coming to you, spoke the Raikage in a polite and respectful voice. Thank you for your kind words, Raikage Denka, as well as for sending your people to save Kurenai-san, her comrades and myself, for if you had not, we would most certainly be still in the hold as prisoners. I'm truly in your debt, as are my family and my people, for saving me from being used by the Mizukage and the Mizudaimyo, replied Princess Sachi, who bowed to the Raikage again in gratitude. It was our pleasure, Princess Sachi, said the Raikage. Now allow me to introduce my personal bodyguards, said the Raikage, where he introduced the tall dark-skinned man with a muscular build as Killer B, the blonde-haired woman as Yujido, the green-haired woman as FK, and the black-haired woman as Akatsu. After each introduction, the princess bowed respectfully to each of them as they did to her, although when Killer B was introduced, he started to talk in rhymes about who he was, and about how beautiful the princess was, although as he did, most people noticed that they weren't very good rhymes. He only stopped when Yujido hit him over the head, causing a large bump to form on his head, and telling him to shut up, which just caused Killer B to rub the bump on his head, and mumble about how an artist is never appreciated in his time, which just caused the Raikage to chuckle, since he was used to their antics. This of course surprised Konoha team, since they knew who 3 of the Raikage bodyguards were when he said their names, since when Jiraiya first went to gather information on Raikuo, Blue Lightning, he informed Swand, the council and all senior shinobis, of the names and identities of Kumo's Jinchurikis. They also knew the name and identity of the Taki's Jinchuriki, since they used to be allies with Takagakure. Although they were surprised at first at who were the Raikage bodyguards, they quickly got over it, since it did make sense to have people like them to protect the Raikage, since who better to protect a Kage than a Jinchuriki host, since there were few people in the world that could stand toe-to-toe with a Jinchuriki, let alone 3 at the same time. After the Raikage had introduced his bodyguards to the princess, he then spoke again to her. Princess Sachi, I thought you would like to know that we informed your father and King Michiritsuki that we were sending a team to rescue you. Upon which they each sent a large task force of ships to meet up with us at a rendezvous point off the northern shore of Nagia Island, where they will bring you to Tsuki no Kuni. We've also just sent a messenger hawk to inform them of our success, and we should meet up with them by later on this evening. Also, I thought you would like to know that your fiancé Prince Hikaru and your brother Prince Tachihiko are on each of the task force fleets that will meet us, spoke the Raikage. Hikaru-kun and Tachihiko Nai-san will be there, asked the princess with clear joy written on her face at seeing her loved ones. Yes, replied the Raikage, after which he then continued. Now if you follow Akatsu here, she will lead you to my private cabin, which has been made ready for you. I'm sure you must be tired and hungry after the events that you have gone through as of late, and would like to rest and have something to eat before we meet up with your brother and your fiancé, said the Raikage. Thank you Raikage Denka, but I'm fine since Commander Sun Li was gracious enough to give me her cabin, and I ate well enough of the swordfish. But if it is possible, could I have a change of clothing, since I would like to be rid of this prison uniform, answered the princess. Of course we have a selection of elegant kimonos that I'm sure you would like on board the ship, for whenever Lady Daimyo Kicho is on board, please take whatever one you would like to wear, the Lady Daimyo will not mind, I'm certain. Also if there is anything else that you wish, like food or something, please don't hesitate to ask, spoke the Raikage. Thank you again Raikage Denka, replied the princess as he left with Akatsuki to go and get change in the Raikage private cabin. After which the Raikage then turned to Falcon and his teams and spoke again. Excellent work all of you, I expected nothing less from you all. Were there any problems other than the ones that you had on the swordfish when you rescued the princess? Asked the Raikage. Nothing that we could not handle Raikage-sama, the attack itself went according as you planned, answered Falcon, which the Raikage nodded and spoke again. Very good, I want a detailed report from all of you in 3 days, other than that you are all dismissed. Expect for you Falcon, I wish to speak to further in a few minutes, ordered the Raikage, where all the stormed-in saluted, and all but Falcon shunshin away, after which the Raikage turned to Commander Sun Li and her crew. Excellent work to all of you as well, I will make sure that you will all receive commendations for your efforts, spoke the Raikage to the crew, which they saluted, after which he then turned to Sun Li and spoke again. As for you Commander Sun Li, I recall asking you not to do anything reckless that would get you into trouble, and that little stunt you played when you battled with the Kiri warships would count as reckless, spoke the Raikage with authority. I apologize Raikage-sama, but it was the only real course of action I could take in the situation we were in at the time, and it did give you enough time to come to our aid. Besides, you know better than anyone I take after my husband, and you yourself can't talk much. Since this plan was yours, and if I may say, some of the other stunts that you did back in the Civil War were a great deal more reckless and risky than the one I pulled back there, replied Sun Li with a small smirk on her face. After which the Raikage started to chuckle and began to speak again. Very true, so I guess I can't really lecture you either, but I can at least ask you to try and not take as many risks if possible, asked the Raikage with a slight chuckle. I do my best, sir, replied Sun Li with the smirk still planted on her face. Very good, you are all dismissed. I will have the Zenyo Rig repair crew begin to repair the damage on the swordfish, spoke the Raikage, after which Sun Li and her crew saluted and then left by going through the doorway at the end of the dock, and up a staircase to the upper levels of the warship. After Sun Li and her crew left, the Raikage then turned to Kurenai and her team, where Kurenai then stood forward to present herself, and bowed to him in respect, which was followed by Lee, Sakura and Choji, who each bowed to him in respect. Raikage Denka, on behalf of my team and I, we wish to thank you for having your teams rescue us from the hold, even though you were under no obligation to do so. We own you our lives, thank you, spoke Kurenai respectfully. You're welcome Kurenai, and think nothing of it, said the Raikage official, after which he then turned Lee and spoke. Rockly Konoha ni Dayume no Kedakai Aoi MMJK. Konoha's second prideful green beast, one of Konoha top Jonin fighters, and their most famous taijutsu specialist, as well as former student of Mito Gai, the original Konoha no Kedakai Aoi MMJK, Konoha prideful green beast, and husband to the clan head of the Kurama clan. Also former teammate of Yuganeji Konoha famed HIGEYO USHIROI White Strike, and Miyashi Tenten Konoha famed Kamiken, Blade Mistress. Surprising Lee and the others at how much he knew of him. Ignoring their surprised looks, the Raikage continued to speak. I've heard a great deal of your exploits over the years, which are quite impressive. Your reputation as a skilled taijutsu master and fighter is well known by my shinobis and the rest of the Heavenly Alliance, and is highly regarded and respected by them. Thank you for your kind and youthful words Raikage Denka, you do me great honor, spoke Lee respectfully and smiled, showing his trade gleaming smile, which made Yujido, Falcon, Killer Bee and FK wonder if he used bleach to wash his teeth to have teeth like that. Perhaps at some later point in the future you and I can have a friendly spar, since I would enjoy testing my taijutsu skill against someone of your caliber and reputation, said the Raikage. This of course got an immediate reaction from Lee, where his smile got even bigger and nearly blinding the others, after which Killer Bee, FK, Yujido and Falcon could have swore they saw fire coming from his eyes. Yash. I can see now why you became the Raikage Denka, for your flames of youth truly burn brightly. I would be greatly honored to test my taijutsu skill against a person as skilled as you, and see which of our flames of youth truly burn brightest, cried Lee, which caused Karini and the others to sigh out of embarrassment, and Killer Bee, Falcon and the girls to have large sweat drops at the back of their heads, although the Raikage just chuckled out of amusement of Lee antics. Good, I look forward to the day, where we can have our little taijutsu spar and, how did you put? Ah, yes. Test our flames of youth. spoke the Raikage with a slight chuckle which only increased when he saw the flames in Lee's eyes get bigger, and he then started to shout out about how youthful the Raikage was. This of course continued for a few minutes until Sakura decided she had enough and hit Lee over the head with her fist, and knocked him out with a large bump on his head, which just made the Raikage chuckle more, after which he then turned to Choji and spoke to him. Akimichi Choji Konoha no Kaijin Kyud, Konoha strong-armed giant, son of Akimichi Chimza, former member of the original Ino Shikacho, and heir to the head of the Akimichi clan Akimichi Chimza, as well as member of the Neo Ino Shikacho. The fame of your team is also well known to me. As well as your individual fame and skill is quite admirable to say the least. Thank you Raikage, thank you, honor me with your words, said Choji as he bowed respectfully. After which the Raikage then turned to Sakura where he had a slight frown on his face. Urno Sakura Konoha Chiyu Sakura, healing Sakura of Konoha, an apprentice of Godai Mei Hokage. I heard a small bit about you as well, your skill, which is somewhat acceptable as a shinobi, and decent to say the least as a medic nin, although no, we're near the same level as your sensei the Hokage, spoke the Raikage, in an emotionless voice. This of course caught Sakura by surprise, since although her skill in healing was not yet at Tsunade's level, it was still quite good, and her shinobi skills was among the best in the village, since she was one of Konoha top kunoichis. The fact that the Raikage had just brushed off her skills off like that was insulting to say the least, but decided to do noting about since it wasn't worth getting in trouble with a Kage over, especially a Kage who they knew so little about in terms of skill and power. But yeah. Thank you Raikage Denka, spoke Sakura quietly. As of right now this fleet is heading for a rendezvous with the task force fleets from Tsuki no Kuni and Yumi no Kuni. Once we done that we will drop you all at Fire Country's shores, where you can make your own way back to Konoha. Also we have set up cabins for you to sleep in, since it will take us about 3 days to reach the Fire Country, after we have handed the princess back to her fiancé Prince Ikaru, and her brother Prince Tachihiko. As long as you are on this ship you will be allowed to be on deck and walk around it. You'll also be allowed in the mess hall and the crew's lounge rooms, but you will not be allowed anywhere else due to security. Failure to obey these rules will result in you being put in the ship's brig, and have your memories erased of your time on this warship. Is that clear, spoke the Raikage with the air of authority that showed why he was a Kage. Of course Raikage Denka, answered Kurenai, who was a bit unnerved at the way the Raikage was looking at them, since it clearly told them that if they crossed him they regretted. Very well then, FK here will show you where your cabins are as well as the crew's lounge, the mess hall, and how to get up on the deck. Also during the trip you will each have one of my shinobis accompanying you wherever you go. If you try and go around the warship without one of them with you, you will be placed in the brig. Is that also clear, spoke the Raikage again, who was staring at them intently. Yes Raikage Denka, answered Kurenai, to which the Raikage just nodded and turned around, and was about to leave the dock with Yujido, Falcon and Killer Bee, when Kurenai decided to call out the Raikage before he left, so to ask him something that she had wanted to do for several years. Raikage Denka, please wait, called out Kurenai. The Raikage stopped and turned around, answered, what is it Kurenai-san? I was wondering if a certain shinobi of yours was on board this ship, asked Kurenai, which caused the Raikage to raise one of his eyebrows. Which shinobi would you be referring to, Kurenai-san? Asked the Raikage. The shinobi that you call Samurai, Blue Lightning, answered Kurenai, which then caused the Raikage to frown. May I ask why? Asked the Raikage. I wish to thank him for avenging my husband's death by killing the ones reasonable for his death, as well as informing us of what he did, answered Kurenai. Well, if that is the case then you have already done so, spoke the Raikage. Which caused a confused look to appear on the Konoha team faces for a few moments, until Sakura suddenly went wide-eyed with realization. The Samurai, said Sakura in surprise, which shocked the rest of her teammates. Correct Haruno-san, although people called me Denku during the Civil War, when I earned the nickname of Samurai as well during the Civil War, until I was given the title of Raiden no Kami. Hence when I killed the 2 Akatsuki members Kakuzu and Hidan, I made sure that people knew it was a ninja called Samurai that killed them, since most people know that I called Raiden no Kami, but do not know that I'm also Samurai as well. Since, as you know, when I battled as the Samurai, I never let people see my face and moved too fast for them to get a good look at me. Hence they believed that Samurai and I were 2 different people, which was what I wanted them to think until recently. Now if you excuse me, I have other duties to perform before we meet up with Tsuki no Kuni and Yumi no Kuni task force fleets, said the Raikage, after which he, Killer Bee, Yujido and Falcon left while FK stayed with the Konoha team and asked them to follow her to their cabins, and so she could show them where the mess hall was as well as the crew lounge, and how to go up to the deck of the warship. In the Raikage private lounge. When the Raikage and the others entered the room, he sat down on his own seat and indicated to the other each sit down in a seat as well, after which he then took off his mask and Kage hat, where it revealed that under his robes, a completely different outfit. The Raikage wore a blue long coat with 3 tails and a white lightning-like pattern on the right side of the coat, as well as black lightning blots at the edges of the coat, and a kanji for storm on the back of it in black. He also wore a short-sleeved black t-shirt with on-boot chest plate and black fingerless gloves. He also had black jeans and boots with steel tips, and had a black strap around his shoulders. The strap helped keep a strange-looking sword that was back in its place. Ha! I can't believe that at one time I wanted more than anything to wear the hat of a Kage, and wear the robes of one, thinking that they were the coolest thing in the world to wear, yet now I can't stand wearing the things now. Since now they look like the most ridiculous things in the world to wear to me, which kind of makes me glad I only have to wear them on certain occasions," said the Raikage with a slight trace of humor in his voice, after which he then turned to Falcon. "You can take off your mask now, Ryu, since it's okay now," said the Raikage, which Falcon did, revealing the face of Hayabusa Rick clan, head of the Hayabusa clan and leader of the Storm Division. "I'd like to say again that both you and your teams did an excellent job with your mission, just as I knew you would, even despite the setbacks you had," said the Raikage. "Thank you, Raikage-sama, you honor me with your praise," spoke Rick. "Also, I'd like to have you give me a detailed report at what happened in your mission right now, if you don't mind," asked the Raikage. "Of course, Raikage-sama," answered Rick, where he spent the next hour and a half telling the Raikage what happened in the mission. Very good, Rick, thank you once again. You and the Storm Ninjas have truly proven yourselves to be the finest Onbu force in the world. But if you don't mind, I'd like you to write your report down, so that I can present it to the other War Council members as well as Kumo Council and the other Alliance members, since I sure would like to know the details of the mission as well. Also, after you rested and we arrive back in Kumo, I'd like you to work with Misato and the Sign Division, as well as Yuruchi and Inisu, 8, in organizing a special task force that we'll be sending out soon to help set up a major operation called Operation Clean Sweep, that I have planned and be launching in a few months' time," said the Raikage. "Of course, Raikage-sama, but if I might be so bold to ask, what is Operation Clean Sweep?" asked Rick, which the Raikage just put his hand in his robes and handed Rick a folder with the name Operation Divine Storm on it, with the classified top secret stamp, and for his eyes only stamp on the cover. Rick then opened it and began to read it. 20 minutes later, Rick finished reading the file and a look at the Raikage. "Are you sure this will work, Raikage-sama?" asked Rick. "Yes, I believe it will if we do everything right, and if I write about certain people which I know I am," said the Raikage. "Very well, then I will begin selecting the Storm members that would be best suited for the mission as soon as we arrive back at New Kumo," said Rick. "Good, although you will not be taking part in Operation Clean Sweep, you will be taking part in the other operation, Operation Raging Thunder, which, as you know, is the more essential part of Operation Divine Storm. Since Operation Divine Storm is split into 4 separate operations, with Operation Raging Thunder and Operation Clean Sweep being 2 of those operations, and if we succeed, they will not only gain us several more important members for the Alliance, but also weaken or destroy most of our potential enemies that will most likely strike in the near future once they're ready. Also, if we succeed, we will ensure that the Heavenly Alliance is the most powerful and dominating force in the elemental continent, in which everyone will know the true strength of the Heavenly Alliance, since we have only begun to show our true strength," spoke the Raikage. "If the Raikage tactical forecast is indeed correct and we accomplish our goals in these operations, then there is no question that both Kumagakure and Kaminari no Kuni, as well as the Heavenly Alliance, would indeed become the most dominating force in the elemental continent. But still, it all depends a great deal on what certain nations, leaders and people do in the coming months, and if they do not do what we need them to do, or if something goes wrong, then the plan will be ruined, and it could put the Alliance in danger of being destroyed, where many lives would be lost. But if there is anyone in this world that I was more than willing to put the fates of Kumagakure, Kaminari no Kuni, the Heavenly Alliance and my clan in their hands, it would be the Raikage, since he has never failed us before, and I do not believe he ever intends to," thought Rick, who then just nodded to the Raikage in understanding the plan, and sealed the folder he was given away, so to put it in a safe place later on, after which he saluted to the Raikage and left. When Rick left, the Raikage could then not help but smile. Soon the world will learn what we are truly capable of, and when they do, the reformation of the shinobi world will begin, in which the sins of the previous generation shall be revealed to everyone, and the world will change forever, thought the Raikage. Several hours later, on the deck of the Zenyo Riken. On the deck of the Zenyo Riken was the Raikage, Prince Asachi, Killer B, Yujido, FK, the Konoha team, Rick and his teams, Sun Li and her crew, the captain of the Zenyo Riken, as well as several members of his crew, and a detachment of Storm Onbu. They were all waiting for Prince Sakaru of Tsuki no Kuni and Prince Tachihiko of Yumi no Kuni to come on board the Zenyo Rhythm, since they had met with the two task force fleets from Yumi no Kuni and Tsuki no Kuni, which totaled 60 warships altogether. Soon enough Prince Sakaru and Prince Tachihiko arrived from the lift that was on the side of the Zenyo Rhythm, since it and the other fortress ships were so large that when people were boarding onto the fortress ships from other smaller ships, they would have to use lifts on the side of the fortress ships to get on. When the two princes arrived, they were each accompanied by their own guards. Prince Sakaru had 4 Tsuki Jonin with him, while Prince Tachihiko had 2 samurai and 2 royal guardsmen with him, one of the guardsmen being Captain Yamaka, 7. Prince Sakaru was a tall young man about 6 foot, and had jet black hair that was spiky at the end. He wore a pair of large round glasses, and had a round yet appealing face with brown eyes. He wore white robes with blue triangle patterns on his sleeves and a blue sash around his left-hand shoulder, and down to his right hip. Prince Tachihiko was equally tall and wore plain white robes, and had a slim katana on his left-hand side around his white sash that was around his waist. Prince Tachihiko was very much like his younger sister. He had slim build, and had a narrow yet elegant face, but more mature looking, with blue eyes, and had long black hair, much like his sister Sachi, which he had tied into a long ponytail that went down to his lower back. "Sachi-chan!" cried Prince Sakaru when he saw the princess, who was wearing a simple and elegant dark naval blue kimono, with a purple slash around her waist, and standing right next to the Raikage, who was wearing his traditional Kage clothing again along with his mask. "Sakaru-kun!" cried Princess Sachi, in which both of the race one another, in which when they met they embrace each other in a lovers-like embrace. Soon after they let go of one another, and Sachi embraced Prince Tachihiko in a brotherly and sisterly embrace when he came up to her. After which for the next few minutes the three of them spoke to each other, in which the princess gave a brief but full story of how she was rescued. After which Captain Yamaka stood in front of the princess and fell on his hands and knees and bowed down to the princess with his head touching the floor, where he then began to speak without lifting his head. "Princess Sachi, you have no idea how grateful and relieved I am that you are alive and safe. If something had happened to you, I would never have forgiven myself and committed seppuku out of shame for failing to protect you. Please forgive me for not protecting you from the Kirigakure shinobis and Mizu no Kuni warriors. If you so do wish, I will gladly still commit seppuku as punishment for failing you," spoke the captain, who clearly showed that he was upset and ashamed for not protecting the princess well enough. After Captain Yamaka had finished speaking, the princess went down on her knee, had lifted him back on his feet. "Please, Captain, do not feel any shame. You were not at fault at all. I was the one who insisted that I have such a light guard to protect me, and I was the one who ordered you to stand down and allowed them to capture me. Even if you had tried to protect me back on the ship, you and the others would have been killed, and they still would have captured me. So please stop blaming yourself, for I do not," spoke the princess kindly. "Thank you, princess, you are far too kind," spoke the captain as he bowed to her. After that the princess and the princes went up to the Raikage and began to speak to him. "Raikage Denka, I can't thank you enough. First, you helped save my country from the coup d'etat of Minister Shabadaba, as well as save the life of my father and myself. Then you helped us found Jitsugakur, and now you saved Sachi-chan, which I'm forever in your debt," spoke Prince Sakaru. "Please, Prince Sakaru, it was noting I was happy to help, for is that not what friends are for, to help one another when they are trouble," said the Raikage. "But even still we owe you a great debt, Raikage Denka, especially my father and I, for saving my sister," said Prince Tachihiko, after which he then bowed to the Raikage out of respect and gratitude to him. After which Princess Sachi then whispered into Prince Sakaru's ear, where when she was finished whispering he smiled and nodded, where the princess then began to speak. "Raikage Denka, if I may, both Sakaru-kun and I would like to invite you to our wedding in 2 months, as a small token of our gratitude towards you, where you would be our honored guest. Please accept. It would greatly honor us if you could come to share in our celebrations," asked Princess Sachi. "I would be greatly honored, princess, although I would have to bring several others with me." "Yes, I know. Sakaru-kun explained to me the situation that you are in, and they are more than welcome to come as well," answered Princess Sachi. "Well, I shall look forward to going to your wedding, Princess Sachi," spoke the Raikage, where he then bowed to the princess, as a sign of his respect, and how honored he was. "Excellent. This would also give my father a chance to personally thank you, Raikage Denka, for saving my sister, since I sure he would want to," spoke Prince Tachihiko. "Also, I believe after the celebrations are over we can discuss the matter of Tsuki no Kuni and Jitsugakur joining the Heavenly Alliance," said Prince Sakaru. This of course caused many shocked looks from most of the people on the deck, especially the Konoha team, while the Raikage showed no reaction whatsoever. "You wish to join the Heavenly Alliance?" asked the Raikage calmly. Yes, since I believe that Tsuki no Kuni would benefit greatly from joining the Heavenly Alliance, and once I inform my father of what you did, and what the Heavenly Alliance is capable of, I sure he agree, as well as will the leader of Jitsugakur. Since when my country became allied to the Heavenly Alliance, you did offer us the opportunity to join the Heavenly Alliance if we wished to, and I'm guessing that offer is still open, said Prince Sakura. Of course Prince Sakura, the Heavenly Alliance is always eager to have a new member join it, replied the Raikage. If that is the case, then if I may, I would like to petition that Yumi no Kuni too join the Heavenly Alliance, since clearly the Heavenly Alliance is very powerful, where Yumi no Kuni could also benefit greatly from joining, since clearly your shinobis are of a higher caliber than other shinobis from the other villages, and your technology is also far superior to that of other nations, since these fortress ships, as well as those wing-like gliders, airships and underwater ships of yours that my sister has told us about are a clear example of how advanced you are. Hence it is why I believe that my country will benefit greatly from joining it, and I have no doubt that my father will agree as well, once I inform him of what Sachi has just told me so far, spoke Prince Tachihiko. This of course got even more surprised looks for nearly everyone on the deck, since both Tsuki no Kuni and Yumi no Kuni wanted to join the Heavenly Alliance. Kurenai and her team not only were surprised, but were also worried now, since they knew this would not go down well once the Konoha Council hears about this. Not to mention that with Yumi no Kuni and Tsuki no Kuni joining the Heavenly Alliance, it would shoot any remaining chance they had at getting any kind of trade alliance or treaty with either Yumi no Kuni and Tsuki no Kuni, as well as their chances with having an alliance with Jitsugakur. Very well, then I will inform the other alliance member of your petitions to join the Heavenly Alliance, and if they agree we will invite you to Kumo, where we will go over the details of joining the Heavenly Alliance, and if you agree to them, you will become full member of the Heavenly Alliance, with all benefits and privileges. Although I'm sure that the other members will agree to you all joining it, and I'm sure that the Heavenly Alliance would also greatly benefit from your nations joining us as well, spoke the Raikage. Thank you Raikage Denka, I will look forward to speaking to you again at the wedding, and in hearing the response of the other members of the Heavenly Alliance, said Prince Tachihiko. As will I, said Prince Sakura. After which both the princes bid farewell to the Raikage while Princess Sachi bid farewell to Commander Sun Li and her crewmember, Takurene and the others, as well as Rick, who had his falcon mask back on, so to keep his identity secret, and his teams in the Raikage, where she thanked him again for saving her. After which the two princes and the princess left and boarded their ships and headed to Tsuki no Kuni. 3 days later on the shores of Fire Country. After Princess Sachi had been brought back to her fiancé, the Kumo fleet headed straight for Fire Country territory. After about 3 days at sea, they were brought to the eastern shores of Fire Country just south of Wave Country, and were escorted by the Raikage himself and his bodyguards to the shores, by use of a small landing boat. Well then, this is where we part ways. Since we're in Fire Country territory, you should be safe enough, but even though I wish you luck and a safe trip home, said the Raikage. Thank you Raikage Denka, we wish you the same, and thank you again for saving us, replied Kurenai. You're welcome. Oh, and Lee Senai, as I said, I will be looking forward to our sparring match, so please try not to get yourself killed until we had it, said the Raikage with a slight chuckle. Hi Raikage Denka. I shall try not to, but if I do I shall run across the Fire Country on my hands 100 times, and if I should fail at that I will, said Lee, where he would have continued had it not for Sakura slapping him at the side of the head. Lee, shut up, we don't have all day to listen to your rants, said an annoyed Sakura. Oh, Miss Sakura-chan, said Lee as he rubbed his sore head. But by then, said the Raikage, in which he and his bodyguards turned around and walked back to their landing boat. Whereas the Raikage boarded his boat, Kurenai and the others turned inland and jumped into the treetops, and began to make their home to their families, and report what happened. As they traveled back to Konoha, they could only wonder what the reaction of everyone in Konoha would be, when they arrived at Konoha gates after being captured by Kiri. They also could not help but imagine the reaction of the council, especially certain members like Kaharu and Donzo, when they learned about the strength and power Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance had shown in the past few days. Altogether, one thing was for certain, Konoha was going to be in for a big surprise when they arrived there. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification. And also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.